I love how you do the same thing as me.
Oh,
Live
just
now,
say it.
get in here.
Yeah, live now,
Yeah.
get in here. Although I was going to say roll right through the news, and originally my word was it's going to be rollicking through the news. And I was like, oh, rollicking is like really, well, it's not the best word to use when describe,
Frolicking.
or no, rollicking
Oh,
with an R.
rollicking.
But
Yeah.
anyways, like, yeah, probably bad language choice.
That
Um,
that came from Sam Hyde when he I believe his Twitter account was Night of Fire. That's when he had Night of Fire. And he did Jahu's Trip to the Future. And he's like, live now, get in here. This link is good, get in here. So I'm like, it just stuck with me. I don't know. But
Howdy, Gloff. Hello, all of our regular folks in chat, chats and chuds alike. Welcome to episode 58 of the
wow.
Digital Archipelago, where everyone's brain has been rewired, we're fired up, and we're excited to be here. I hope that you're all doing well. It's Out of Touch Thursday for those that are still keeping track. It's also tiresome, and there are just days where all sorts of shit happens at once. But before we get into it, Gio, what have you been up to since we last spoke last week?
Well, I've been trying to get back to writing. I have to finish it by the end of September. But I had that Peter Ludlow content minded episode, which was really good about the nature of the early internet till now.
It was really good.
Oh, thank you, Prude. Maybe I'll send you the full one because we get into certain cults of personality online that maybe in his interactions with Weave. So that's probably for the best for the paywall. But other than that, I was on Orin yesterday with Kryptos. We talked about the mass graves thing in Canada here, and it was a good Canadian content stream. But also we try to weave things into America. And I probably next week maybe I will release the Marty Phillips interview. But also I want to do another short video. You people tend to like the under 20-minute videos still. So I want to come out with more shorts and also the under 20-minute video. I contemplated doing a like 15-minute joke video on Gunther Failing and the Failinger doctrine.
I love him. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like I know
he's turned into this, like, there's that Teutonic autism that built like the German Empire and its unification, and like was part of the first two world wars of conquering Europe, and now it's just like NATO all over again. He's like the perfect folly for boomer cons and Brexiteers that are like, the EU is the Fourth Reich, and it's just like, nah, look at this guy. It's like, this is for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
One of my favorite Landshark tweets was a recent one where he said that Gunther Failinger changing his profile picture to the Nafo Doggo and calling for the destruction of Israel is like God testing Job in terms of his right-wing followers just to test their faith in the Failinger doctrine. So
the Failinger doctrine is basically the encompassing of it's so over and we're so back all at once.
Failinger is really, I think, more ideologically consistent in his NATO wave shilling than even the well-coiffed gentleman, Big Spence. So, I mean, it's very funny. I mean, it's he tests the faith of his right-wing followers all the time. I mean, Nafo Doggo calling for the destruction of the greatest ally. So it's like, what are you going to do?
Well, the parody tweets have also grown into their own memes. It's just like, I love my wife, but now that I'm going to have to turn her into my ex-wife because she like has that abhorrent doctrine of neutrality, so I'm gonna have to chop her up into 9 pieces.
Or the Sweden one where it's like they edited him, it's like, you can't hide in the mountains forever. Like it's, you know.
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh my god. But before I forget, before we get into it, not to name names, but a good friend of ours, both of us, but a good friend of mine is currently in the hospital undergoing major surgery right now. So if everyone in the chat, everyone listening can give our friend a prayer intention, that would be for the best. So on a serious note, we'll get back to the laughs, but before I forget, I just wanted to put out that serious note to pray for a friend who is undergoing a very trying time right now. So this person doesn't want to be named. So,
but yes, publicly. A good friend of ours both, and do pray for them in that respect. Yes. It's a rather serious ordeal.
Yes. All right. So Failinger doctrine. Oh,
I hope that gets. I want that cut there, like serious thing, and then back to this Failinger guy.
Well, Fishy says, are we going to contemplate the Indian question?
Well,
But
you know what? We're going to happily shill our good friend Patrick Casey. He's going to be talking about that in full and in depth later today on Restoring Order. So if you want an answer to that, Mr. Frenzy, be sure to tune in and have the little bell notification rung for Pat Casey's channel when he goes live. He's actually having an Indian gentleman from the Mises Institute to discuss that. So if you want some more in-depth, enlightened conversation, that would probably be the place to go. If we get into it, we get into it. I feel like we talked a little bit about it throughout since this whole election shit started. Like, I can't wait for the next GOP debate because it's only going to get worse. We sort of saw this go on with in the backdrop, and I was talking about this yesterday with the pamphleteer, where it was like you kind of noticed this like emerging, multi-ethnic fractures inside the Republican Party where they never talk about their own base, which is like white people, and like you saw this with like Kamit Dillon versus Ronna McDaniel going for the GOP chair. And now the ordeal of civility gets triggered anytime you recognize that, like, well, who's the base of the GOP party, not its elites? And then they get upset. And so to see two of them, run for the office of the presidency, and she's not doing well in her home state of South Carolina, according to the latest polls, but you can take that with a grain of salt as you wish. So it's just kind of interesting to see how that all plays out. But
where does Ronna McDaniel stand? I think I asked you this before. Where does Ronna McDaniel stand politically? Is she just like an army con or?
Well, I mean, she's part of the Romney family, so that should answer your question.
There you go.
Pretty sure her name is like Ronna McDaniel Romney or something like that.
Oh my God.
Ronna, I'm gonna look it up real quick. Ronna McDaniel. Yeah. Oh, her maiden name is Romney. That's why. Born 1973. She's turned 50 this year. Oh, many such cases. The Uniparty's here.
She's not that bad looking. I don't know.
She could lose some weight.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit, but just a little.
I mean,
she looked. Ronna McDaniel young.
Oh boy, here we go.
All right. She has like a bit of Senpaku eyes, but if you're part of the Romney family, that comes with the territory.
Oh my gosh.
Is she also a Mormon?
Well, the Romneys are on paper Mormon. I don't know how actual practicing or believing they actually are with the LDS church.
Well, she went to Brigham Young University, so that answers questions.
Well, I mean, it's there's a lot of people that go to BYU that end up becoming ex-Mormons, or
that's true. Yeah, so, you don't have to. I believe you don't have to be a Mormon to go to.
No, but you do have to follow their like strict morality code for however it works on campus. I don't know 100%. Like I've been to Salt Lake City a few times. It's a nice city, minus the like smog and everything from the open mines that are not too far from it. But
they have open mines still.
It's a grid system. It's great. One of the best places that had like I hate to sound like a foodie, but like there's some really good. They make some really good food in Salt Lake City, and they've got their own patented signature fry sauce in the area. You just can't buy beer or liquor there to save your life for obvious reasons.
You can buy Monster Energy everywhere. They have dispensing machines, and they flood the place with Monster Energy white. So,
well, how else are you going to have the energy to engage in those soaking parties, Gio? So I mean, it makes sense. But it was weird because like the other day I was in Oklahoma, and it's a hop, skip, and a jump for me to drive up there, and it was there for some work related stuff, and I forgot that they had recently legalized medicinal marijuana. But medicinal in Oklahoma, you just get like a family practitioner to prescribe you medicinal marijuana, and like I'm driving through, and it's like every ramshack like tin sheet metal roof is a dispensary, and it's just
your vibes are too harsh. Let me prescribe you some.
You got upset over your gambling losses over at the Choctaw Reservation. I guess we're gonna prescribe you some medical marijuana. But like it was really awful to see these like disgusting old wooden barns be like repainted and rebranded for dispensaries, and you're just like, God. Come on. Nothing had like said the utter depravity of like small town rural Oklahoma, like just seeing 50 different dispensaries under 50 different franchises like try and like sell you pot. And I'm like, it's probably easy for me to get a hold of it, but like it just seems like it's not what I would expect in Oklahoma. And it's just like, great. Okay is going to be just like Colorado at this point. But you know, we're going to take weed and hard liquor, and it's just going to be a disaster on reservation territory.
Oh my God, that's brutal. That's brutal. I recently saw this video. Speaking of politicians, I recently saw this video of someone confronting Chrystia Freeland here in Canada, and she had like these biker shorts on. I did not realize how thick she was. That kind of made me question my. Nah, never mind. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But
Those Freeland thighs got me questioning my loyalty to Polivier. I don't know, but like
we need a Ronald McDaniel shot in yoga pants. That'll really determine the fate of the GOP, in my opinion.
oh my
But-
gosh. GOP
noticed-
needs sex appeal. That's right. We're gonna do it with Ronna McDaniel, average American experience in politics.
I noticed that there's a lot of Republican women who are stockier nowadays. So maybe they're bucking the trend of body positivity. I feel they're sort of replacing the stocky like baddie thing. They're getting rid of like the what was her name? Tomi Lahren.
Yeah, Tomi Lahren.
Ancient history, right? But yeah, they're replacing her, like the skinny white, blonde girl, the Fox News girl.
Tomi Lahren. Oh yeah. Well, she kind of like screwed herself with her right wing base because she like came out and said no to abortion or like yes to abortion on Glenn Beck, and so she's like, I'm done with this. And it's like every media striver ever, where it's like, I don't have principles. I just want to like be seen and get popular, and that's how it was for her. I don't know what she does anymore.
Yeah,
like,
what does she do?
That feels like such ancient history.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like what happened to her? I don't know.
What is she doing? Tomi Lahren.
She's probably still on Twitter. So.
Well, let's see. She's 31. Interesting. Oh no, she got married, so there's hope for her.
Oh, yeah.
Not having a lot of hope for her. She is the host of Fearless on Outkick and Fox News. And what is Outkick? I've never heard of that. Your antidote to mainstream sports media. So I'm going to assume an alternative to Barstool Sports. Let's go.
Whoa.
Let's go.
Let's fucking go. Yeah.
Oh man, how exciting.
Maybe we should write an article. Curly Things is ushering in new beauty standards for the right wing. Who knows?
There you go.
Oh, I wanted to write the Renew Fold article. I remember Catherine, she's like, you should write it, but I know that would piss people off. But
typical Con Inc. siding with the libtards, his body. That's great.
They have birthing hips. Come on, Katie J. What are you talking about? That's the whole point. I mean, the Tomi Lahrens of the world ain't gonna cut it anymore.
Yeah.
So
unless Tomi Lahren has kids, she's on the way to becoming Ann Coulter. Like it's inevitable.
Boy.
Just a spiteful old woman who's angry that certain policies weren't enacted. But I mean, when she was young, good Lord. Also, like, she's a big deadhead, which is interesting. There's a lot of right-wing deadheads in this space. There's apparently Ann Coulter, there's Dave the Distributist, and there's C. Sandbach. So I mean, like, what an odd couple of people to just be like, yeah, they all like the Grateful Dead. And then you have that weird byline of like, John Perry Barlow being allegedly with the CIA as a plant, but he was also their lyricist and he started the Electronic Frontier Foundation. The more I read into it, the more I think of like what Sandbach showed me one time. He's like, listen, that rabbit hole goes so deep. I kind of think it's the answer to everything. And I'm like, there's probably a nugget of truth to that. It's kind of insane how much all kind of coincides in that respect. But
to answer Fishy Friends' question, I am an internet sociologist, and we do need to restore the sociological science, of course. But
that's why we're physiognomy checking everybody. We're true sociologists on the internet, sir. It's post physique and post physiognomy, and we're going to check out your profile picture. Like, of course.
Yeah, profile account physiognomy is real. So, but anyways, Ronna McDaniel. She's not running for president, is she? She's
the head of the RNC. She's not. Okay. She's not anything like particularly special or anything like that.
Who was before her, the head of the RNC? Wasn't it it
was Reince Priebus, right?
Yeah. I'm thinking of back in the Bush administration when
it was that black guy.
Yeah, right? It was a black guy, yeah.
Head of the RNC in 2006. I don't know why I'm checking this. Oh. Let's see here. 2004 was Ed Gillespie. Ken Melman.
I remember.
We had a Mel Martinez as the general chair in 2007. That was a weird year. Oh man, isn't he like? Is this the same Ed that I'm thinking of, or no? It's not. Okay, cool. I'm not too worried.
I remember Reince Priebus. I remember like he always used to go on CNN.
Well, he was Trump's chief of staff for a little bit. Like,
yeah.
Everyone forgets that like the Trump administration was just fucking wild, like because everyone would go in and out and everyone was it's just, does any of that matter at this point? Does any of it matter, Gio? Who cares that Reince Priebus was the White House chief of staff for the Trump administration? Who gives a shit? I'm 15 minutes in, and I'm like, I'm done.
You mean to tell me that a lot of Bush hacks were in the Trump administration?
Oh yeah,
man.
Say it ain't so. Yeah, we just brought that up, Javier, that Ronna McDaniel is a Romney.
Ronna McDaniel, part of the Ayala tweet that went. No, I'm kidding. That's too disgusting. That's too much. I don't know. I think Ronna McDaniel's all right, but she is a Romney, so.
Yeah, I mean,
they have their own I guess they have their own version of that. The Romney family's own version of the Ayala tweet that's been going around lately. You never know.
I don't even want to know.
Apparently the rabbit hole goes deep with the Romneys in terms of the American deep state. So, you know.
Well, I mean, there's statistically, I mean, like Mormons are statistically above average in terms of their representation in like the FBI. So yeah, it's not surprising there, I guess. Like, why not be part of the deep state? Why not make a bunch of money and all sorts of like, I don't bother.
Apparently the chat is saying our friend Oren is going to debate Peter Boghossian today or whenever.
Oh yes, I saw the news. My heart goes out to Oren. I'm so sorry that you have to do this, but you are our most restrained boomer whisperer, and I appreciate it. I was on with him like you this week as well. We were talking about that god awful article about what
Peter
was it?
I wish.
Man.
R.I.P. to a legend.
That feel with the IDW doesn't get hit by a jet.
Who would be Peter Boghossian's equivalent of Dmitry Yudkin? Probably well, who's the most probably Richard Dawkins, because he's basically
I was going to say one of the Weinsteins, because
or the Weinsteins,
Boghossian all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that bubble, but like
what article was it about? I watched
it. It was about why preferring biological children is immoral. So children that look like you and that are of your own seed, that's bad. And it was written by someone named Leo Kim, and it makes me think, was Leo Kim adopted? It's a popular, Kim is a common name in America, but you know, usually those are adopted out or they're in certain ethnic enclaves. But like, I have to, you know, but it was just this awful article because they were like, well, biological, you know, determinism is wrong. The idea that like we, you know, wanting to have children that are of your own is bad, and we have the technology to erase you. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, it's getting really, really hard to like not say like certain numbers of words on this like television program that's going to be on the Blaze when there's people that's talking about like genetic erasure of an entire like group of people. Because it all went back down to the fact that like, listen, if you like having children of your own, that's blood and soil. That's the Third Reich. You have to be eliminated. And I was just like, I don't know how I can restrain myself from saying certain things on the air. So I'm
total deracination everywhere, even including from your own parents. That's really
So I was just
at the end of the day, every leftist ideology is basically just I hate my parents. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was basically I hate my parents or I hate white people. That's more or less every leftist ideology at this point. and it was just I was really frustrated in that respect because it was just like, oh man, I don't. And anytime I'm on Oren, and I this is not to disparage him. I love what he's doing, but like I'm either on there talking about the most Fed post inducing articles of my life, or I'm there to like explain like Nick Land 101, and that's okay. Yeah. I don't mind that. It's the other part that tests my patience and God's will to keep me restrained from like Fed posting on the air.
I thought I was pretty optical last stream yesterday. I mean, maybe I lived out a bit too hard, but it's a complicated issue.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine how messed up it is with respects to Canada. And like, you guys didn't do what the American, you know, explorers and westward expansion did. Like, there was literal
race war. There was
war.
A literal race war in America.
It was a literal race war in America for like the control of the West. And I mean, even when America was founded, right? Like, you had the King Philip's War was really the New England Yankee style form of of understanding like our identity, because like those firsthand accounts of King Philip's War are so brutal and so nasty that it was a war for total extermination of a certain people. And so that mindset has always been in the American mind, whereas in Canada, not so much.
Yeah.
And it was very strange because I don't know how to balance that. Because it's like, well, in America, like USG won, white people won that war, and like now they're in little reservations. Whereas in there, I mean, in Canada, that did not happen.
Well, because of our geography as well, like I was saying, like from Champlain onwards in the Laurentians, basically there had to have been cooperation with the indigenous tribes out of necessity. Like I'm talking like literal matter of survival, especially with the Coeur de Bois in the fur trade. But then by the time the British were established here in the sort of the plain, from the lower Ontario onwards, then you start to have settler colonialism similar to in America, although the British Crown had a testy, but if not respectful relationship with the indigenous people until a certain point. Then you have the ushering in of the residential school systems and so forth. There's other people, like, for example, Settlers of the Men has more of a depth of knowledge about this history than I do, because unfortunately, like, I chose to pay more attention to American politics and history in some regards. But
you're colonized, Gio.
Yeah,
you're colonized.
I know. Yeah, even my old man, he's like, you should just be American. Maybe one day. But yeah, so there's a history there that's a bit more nuanced. I mean, another thing too, in America, you got to admire. I mean, listen, the indigenous people in America, they did do horrific things to a lot of those, especially, particularly Mormon settlers. Prude, you know the history of this in Arizona, and a lot of the frontiersmen having to fight off the Comanche and other warring tribes. But like, there's a lot of writers of the frontier that also, and a lot of the atrocities committed, not justifying it, of course, against the indigenous people, but a lot of frontiersmen, they had like a tacit admiration for a lot of the indigenous tribes, like the Comanche and in the Lakota and elsewhere. Like, these were very fierce warrior cultures, and I mean, they lost, and for a variety of reasons. But the history there is like very fascinating. But in America, I mean, like I even alluded to this on Oren. I had to, of course, be as optical as I could. But in America, like the politics of slavery and emancipation, it does really overlook the politics and the history with the indigenous people in America and what happened to them. Like, look at the Trail of Tears, for instance, and all that. I mean, there's like there's liberal academics that go into it, but for obvious reasons, the theological nature of the slavery and so forth with African Americans. Yeah, I mean, I am one to say that, it is unfortunately an overlooked history between the settlers and the Americans and the indigenous people. But I don't know, I'm just rambling right now. But yeah, Geronimo was a great warrior. If you read the book that was written, or rather transcribed from Black Elk, that is also, I know, like a lot of New Agers back in the day, they loved that book. But it is a great book. It is the Black Elk Speaks is a good one. But of course, you have to realize that you cannot fall into the lib trap of sort of reifying them and exoticizing them, because the indigenous people, they weren't like the noble savage. Like, they had quite a bit of, I mean, even here in Canada, the Iroquois Confederacy, I mean, the level of brutality in a lot of cases met the level of brutality of the white settler. So like you gotta realize, like, the American plains and frontier was an incredibly violent and brutal place.
Yeah.
Before, quote unquote, civilization closed the frontier. I mean, Prude, you know this history. Incredibly violent existence that a lot of these people experienced. I mean, yeah. So, but of course, unfortunately, yeah. I mean, that history of America. I mean, American history is very, like, for a variety of reasons. I know, like, libtards, they talk about this, but it is true factually that American history is sort of like sanitized and retconned for a variety of reasons in American history classes, right? Like, so I mean, even Oren talks about this. Oren used to teach history.
Yeah, I know. I've met him a few times IRL, and he's given me horror
Yeah.
stories, but he's like, it's also kind of easy to red pill people, but I'm like really glad I'm not doing that anymore. And I
Yeah.
was like, I don't blame you. I can't imagine what teaching high school education, or like I don't know what grade he taught, but like I can't imagine what it was like teaching education to a bunch of people that had no idea
Yeah.
what the hell that meant or
Yeah.
what that looked like. Just
And
ugh.
yeah, and to answer Fishy Frenzy's question, let me do a little rant on this.
Yeah, by all
Uh
means.
Josh Eckel, AstroTurf BS of Project Liberal. I encountered this guy. He had a tweet that went viral about multicultural societies being quote unquote safer and more harmonious and more economically productive. But, I think I deleted it because I don't want negative attention. But I said that in fact, all multicultural societies basically existed off of the fumes of a previous civilizational understanding, mostly from the Anglosphere. Even
Yeah.
Singapore, you could say, being an authoritarian multicultural society, Lee Kuan Yew cribbed a lot of things from the British. Like, so basically that tweet is inaccurate that went viral of this Eckel guy doing this like weird kind of like I'm a classical liberal, Babylon B, Joe Barry style stuff when reality, a multicultural societies can only exist off of that previous civilization's understanding of itself and the systems that those civilizations created from that monoculture. And it's evident everywhere, even Canada. We are a product of the British and the French, and well, now America, but like largely the Anglosphere. If you want to
Yeah.
talk about the founding of quote unquote Canadian multiculturalism, that purely came from Anglo and French judicial traditions. So this whole thing about like multicultural societies are so great. I mean, Brazil is a multicultural society, right? Like
Not doing so great.
not doing so great. Like even nowadays with Lula, like I have a friend of ours that recently immigrated here to Canada. He ran a business in Brazil, and he basically has to work like low level, handyman jobs here because he had to flee because of the economic oppression going on by the Lula administration as soon as Bolsonaro was kicked out. I mean, and even in America, and I said in this thread, I said America, they use it as an example of a multicultural paradise. But in the same breath, libs are like, well, America's evil and racist and the original sin of slavery and so forth. And it's like, take take your pick, right? But
I
again,
mean,
this
this is a really
yeah.
great point. Teaching history is like teaching religion in
Oh,
schools. It's
100%
treated like just like
bullshit
another subject. It's another no, absolutely. It is
Yeah.
religious. Like it is history is just as much catechization as it is for a catechism to a church. Like that's absolutely true. And it's
Yeah.
like incredibly frustrating to see that happen here in the US and really everywhere because I mean you're being catechized in a religion that like hey if you're a white kid like everything that made this country what it was from in the
Yeah.
past is now evil and it also is a great way to like reassociate like whoever's new to the country like you aren't a part of this, you aren't evil, you are absolved of this like sin of whiteness that you don't have to worry about and
Yeah.
you're good to deal with it, which is incredibly frustrating because like now polyglots, man, it's so exciting. And that happened earlier this week, which just got under my fucking nerve. And I'm so tired. This is what it goes down to every single time immigration gets
Proof
brought
going
up.
off,
And it's
yeah.
going to be about food trucks, flavor, culture, seasoning. And it's never about the fact that it has nothing to do with, hey, can you like open your door, trust your neighbor to like watch it while you're gone for a week? No. But boy, oh boy, I sure love having my DoorDash Bulgogi tacos. And we're going to have a great fucking time about it. And it's incredibly frustrating because no one seems to understand the fact that what really matters at the end of the day, if there's a fire, if there's an emergency, a natural disaster, or anything else, can I even speak the same language to the guy that happens to be my neighbor in my apartment complex? No. So what on
No.
earth am I doing? But thank God that the newest food stand is right up there for me to enjoy karaoke, go to my wine bar, and like Peter Zion, try my Asian Mexican fusion restaurant and feel
Whoa.
so good about the American superpower that is this country. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. And that's only shows you the fundamental understanding for these people. They're never affected by it. So the
Yeah.
only thing that they get to enjoy are the second order effects of cuisine, culture, language, movies, and another way that they can self-flagellate themselves in the delightful pleasure of their own erasure and self-identification. I'm just done with it. I hate this like treats discourse. I hate the seasoning discourse. It's
Yeah.
bad. It's over. I can make the fucking food myself. I'm done.
Yeah, I try my Asian Mexican fusion GF. Can you imagine that? I mean, what would the arguments look like there? I mean, would the Asianness temper the heat of the Mediterranean / Latina? Maybe, who knows,
Stop
right?
the slop. That's so true. Stop the
Stop
slop.
the slop.
Stop the count. Stop the slop. We're
Stop the
done.
slop.
Sargon was right. It's awful.
Oh.
And I'm going to go have beans on toast for dinner tonight.
The best
Like,
was when
done.
he tweeted the picture after. He's like going to bed with his tweet live. It's like Homer like cozied up in the bed. Yeah. But another thing too is that even though a lot of the people that land here in North America are absolved with this original sin of like the, you know, white European atrocities of history, they still are submerged within the politics of the regime anyways. And a lot of times they bring their ethnic conflict here. I mean, here in Canada, the ethnic conflict in Brampton between the Sikhs and the Indians, I mean, it's incredible, right? Like but also as soon as Sikhs starts, as soon as Sikhs, they start voting conservative and they went to the trucker protest, now they also have to sort of invent a way of staining them as well with the domestic politics of the libtard West. So it never ends, really. I mean, the whole thing about the assumption that multiculturalism leads to a form of veil of ignorance, Rawlsian cultural harmony. I mean, again, there is no complete veil of ignorance. I mean, the closest countries that have come to any sort of like pure multiculturalism that didn't originate from an Anglosphere country or a European country or so forth would kind of be like Singapore. But Singapore was basically an imperial project by a Westaboo. Lee Kuan Yew. So it's like, Lee Kuan Yew, if you want to talk about Westaboos, like, my God, Lee Kuan Yew's the biggest Westaboo around. And
except he actually punishes people.
Yeah.
And punished criminals. So that absolutely. It was the same thing that came out of that, like, they were posting about like car trips and road trips. They're like, the European mind can't comprehend this. And it was like from the end of Florida all the way up to Alaska. And it's like a 3.5, like almost 4-day drive. And someone was like, the American mind can't comprehend this. And it was like a lengthy
from Norway all the way down to Italy.
And then it escalated because then it was just like from the bottom of India all the way to the top near Bangladesh. And I was like, I wonder who built that train. Just curious. I wonder who built that train.
I should do a meme like the American mind can't comprehend this. And it's like the trip from Ontario to Vancouver is like a week by car. So that's if you're speeding, a week by car. It's like Americans can't comprehend this, that there's like, there's only like how many? Okay, let's see. How many provinces between? I should know this, but we only have like 11.
What are the two towns that you're referencing?
So let's say from Vancouver to Toronto.
Vancouver. Okay.
It's like a week. My I know because my best friend, his oldest sister lives in Vancouver.
And we're driving, right?
Yeah, just by driving, it took like a week. So
okay. 40 hours is what it says.
Oh, really, eh?
Yeah, 40 hours from Vancouver to Toronto. And
so,
yeah,
sorry,
down
3
into
days, yeah.
Well, it cuts me through the States. I don't know what it would be like driving through Canada. I wonder what that would look like. But yeah, it says 40 hours, so 4,229 kilometers, which, I mean, that's pretty lengthy.
Yeah,
but,
BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, yeah. Whereas, like, in America, if you drive from California to New York, that's like, how many states is that, Prude? That's got to be like...
You're going to drive through... I mean, that's coast to coast. That's 3,000 miles. I mean, that's an insane thing to think about. I mean, 3,000. You're
cutting through quite a bit of states there in America, from California to New York, so...
Yeah, 3,000 miles to KM is almost 5,000 kilometers. So, I mean, like, you're cutting through almost the entirety of the U.S. I mean, depending on your route, you're going to cut through at least 20. But, I mean, I mean, yeah, I can speed, most of the time. Like, where I live, right? Like, my speed limit's 75. But, like, if I'm in the fast lane and I'm going the speed limit, like 20 people are riding my ass saying, like, go faster.
Yeah.
Even the cops will pass you from the slow lanes telling you like speed up, bro. I'm not gonna radar gun you. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like I
Yeah,
can
I
go
knew that
90.
driving down in the
I
States.
can hit 90 miles an hour and no one's gonna give a shit. Like I don't know what it's like in Canada to drive there, and I feel like it would go mad because like when I'm down, like back if you live in El Paso, for instance, like it's like playing Russian roulette. Like you never know if like the moment that like you put the gun to your head or whatever. Oh man, I gotta look to my left, I gotta look to my right because there's guys with New Mexico plates that probably don't have insurance, and then to my left there's a guy with Juarez plates that definitely doesn't speak English and doesn't have insurance and doesn't know how to
Oh
drive in the
God.
United States. So you're like, this is fucking crazy. And it's just, yeah, I'm kind of glad I don't live there anymore. But yeah, it's I can't imagine driving in Canada. I feel like it would be a lot safer.
No, actually, I noticed that American drivers are better than Canadian ones. Everyone's an asshole on the road in Canada. Maybe COVID just broke everybody's brain, but I noticed like people in America they drive way more consistently. Maybe just because of where I'm going, right? But it's like, yeah, I
Mm.
notice as soon as I come back to Canada, it's like, man, everyone's an asshole here. I can't believe this. But yeah. Well, how long did it take you to drive from Texas to Tennessee? You had to
Well,
cut through how many states?
I really cut through Arkansas and then got
That's
into
it?
Tennessee. Yeah.
Not even through Kentucky or no.
No, I don't recall driving through Kentucky. No, I didn't. Like, it
Hmm.
was remarkably easy, but it's also because of where I live. It was just
Yeah.
kinda easy to cut across and get there. I'm trying not to geographically dox myself, but, like, it
Yeah.
didn't take me that long. It was a day trip. I mean, like, that's the thing about I think because Americans are just so car oriented, we're just like,
Yeah.
a 16-hour drive to me is a day trip. Like, if I mean, I don't have to worry about anything else. Like, if I'm gonna I could just gun it, you know? And if I just discipline myself and I only stop for gas and to go to the bathroom, I'm there in 16 hours or sometimes less if I speed. And
Yeah.
I'm used to it. So someone's like, "Oh man, it's a 12-hour drive or whatever." I'm like, "Nope." And I mean, even for us in America, like my ability to comprehend distance is based on how long it takes to drive to places. So
Oh
like
yeah.
if when we have visitors at our church or whatever, like someone will ask me like, "Oh, where do you live?" or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh, I live in this area." So I'm like, "Oh, so that's like about a 3-hour drive, right?" Like I'm trying to, turn the miles into how long of that drive is. And they're like, "Yeah, it sounds about right. It only took us this long to get here." So like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like, oh, if I'm going to drive to this other part of Texas, like that's about like 4 hours or whatever. I'll see friends later in the afternoon. Like that's how it is. Like my brain is wired to think, how long does it take me to get there via car? Because I mean, like public transportation or a lot of railroads is just doesn't exist. And I mean, Amtrak is awful. Uh, so why bother? Like, someone's like, well, you could Amtrak up to like Oklahoma City or whatever. And it's just like, I can also drive there and I don't have to deal with people. Like, it's even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Like it's such a car oriented society. And there are problems to that, obviously, in like the cities. And I know that you had a thread about this on the homeless and urban planning, which was
Yeah.
interesting because, like, I live in the middle of nowhere, so like, I have no take on urban planning other than I hope I hope they figure it out. Like, damn dog, that sucks.
Yeah.
What do you need? Like, but I know it's only gotten worse, and a lot of it does have to do with the fact that we don't police anymore, and I think that's a big reason why Andrew Yang didn't get the vote in New York. Because I think he was like, well, we should just bring back the asylums, and he promptly met a
Can't have
sharp
that.
criticism. We can't have
Yeah.
asylums. Yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
I don't know what were you referring to there with the homeless issue? Because you said you had a take that would piss everybody off. So now I'm more inclined to hear it.
Well, I had that thread about like basically we need to bring back forms of institutionalization and policing, restrict immigration, restructure the economy. These are the only root issues that really matter when it comes to homelessness. Because the point being I was trying to make is that, the right wing has like this power fantasy, and we all know what it is, when I say millions, but the left wing basically invites this social chaos. And in a lot of ways, it's not a bug, it's a feature. And so I was saying that if you had like, no authoritarian state, and of course I was thinking of say like Lee Kuan Yew or even Saddam at the height of his power, when there was like zero criminality, apart from his son. But that was, well, let's not get into Udi Hussein. We could all watch the Count Dankula documentary on Udi Hussein. Let's not get into that. But I'm
Yeah.
saying like in general, there was no crime in Iraq, before America decided to bomb Baghdad back into the Stone Age. So, and of course, Saddam released all those prisoners, and Rumsfeld sent all of those troops into a sea of munitions and prisoners and radical Islamists that creep through the border, because of course there's no border control anymore in Iraq in 2003. So thank you, Donald Rumsfeld. You really did the American GI a good service with that by not securing any of the munitions that the Americans gave to Saddam in the 80s to fight the Iranians. But anyways, I digress. The point being is that no authoritarian state would actually let this amount of human capital just basically rot and get turned into fentanyl zombies, and to basically literally waste away on the streets of Philadelphia and in San Francisco and elsewhere. So I'm saying the only way to really address the homeless problem is to totally restructure what we think is politics in North America. And I said, of course, that this would never be allowed for. And really, the solution isn't just to round them up or whatever. There needs to, if you really wanted to round them up and put them back into institutions, there has to be a progressive plan to reorientate them into being functioning members of society through drug programs, through jobs programs, through ways in which you can get these people to work. And of course, let's face it, the illegal migrants in America that do constitute the homeless population, I'm sorry, but Prude, I mean,
they got to go back.
They got to go back. They got to go back because there's people in America.
You got to stop the slop. You got to stop the slop.
Exactly. Yeah, they can't be fixed, Gio. Well, unfortunately, there are homeless people that would basically have to become wards of the state forever because of their drug addictions and because of their low social standing and because of the various problems that accompany homelessness in America. But homelessness, I said in this thread, is a tricky issue because a lot of homeless people are not technically homeless. They're in sort of like a liminal state of living out of their cars, living couch to couch, paycheck by paycheck. Those are people that would be immediately helped by economic restructuring. A lot of homeless people, a lot of homeless issues would be solved if you basically find a way to bring back industrialization to North America, to Canada and America, and to huge parts of Europe. But of course, to fight the war in Ukraine, that is becoming impossible in Western Europe, especially in Germany. There will be a homeless explosion in Germany in the coming years because of this closing down of factories and shipping them all off to China and so forth. And that's, of course, because we have to help Ukraine, though. We have to help Z-Man over there.
Absolutely.
Sniff, sniff. Oh, by the way, did you see, Prude, that he arrested Kolomoisky and that allegedly there is billions of dollars that they can't account for in terms of war funding that goes all the way to the top? I wonder why he had to arrest Kolomoisky.
Say it ain't so. It's almost as if before this war started, even the left-wing rag The Guardian was going to tell you how corrupt the country of Ukraine was. And you're telling me that we pumped billions of dollars and billions of arms and munitions to allegedly fight the Russians?
Yeah.
That Lord knows where they've probably gone?
A lot of those munitions went to the Horn of Africa and also.
Tell me how they ended up in the hands of various African Islamic terrorist groups that are now allegedly fighting parts of sub-Saharan African militaries. Say it ain't so, Gio. It's almost as if war is a racket.
yeah. Listen, the reality is that
give war a chance, kids. Give war a chance.
Give war a chance, exactly. Listen to the song "Bitter Peace" by Slayer. It's funny, Kolomoisky, you know what's going to happen? He's basically just going to end up in New York or Tel Aviv. That's it. And he'll do his illegal business in New York, and the State Department will tell him to get the hell out of here. Then he'll go to Tel Aviv, and Bibi Netanyahu would tell him to get out of here, and maybe he'll end up in London. He ain't going to serve no real jail time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go off, Gio. I got a call from.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that when it comes to the homeless issue, there basically when the libs talk about the programs, they're at least in part correct when it comes to drug programs and lack of funding. But the problem is you basically need, and this is what Lee Kuan Yew discovered, is that you would basically need the arm of the state to come in and enforce these programs on people. But there will always be a class of vagabonds who will not conform to society. But these are an infinitesimally small, and then I pointed this out in this mini thread of mine. The vagabonds, or people that don't want to fit into society, they're a very small percent of the general homeless population that has exploded since the deindustrialization of America and North America in general. And also the immigration pressures that come on homeless people as well. But yeah, people talk about van life and all that. The van lifers, they can have sustainability, but people that are homeless that live in their cars and so forth, those are people that are directly impacted by the deindustrialization of America and North America in general, Canada as well. There's a huge homeless population in Canada, around Vancouver in particular. But when it comes to, and here's the thing, you have millennials now that are adopting the van life out of necessity because their jobs are being offshored in Silicon Valley. The H-1B visas that are being given to Indians and South Asians and so forth, like those people, like I don't understand. If you have young kids who are coming out of coding farms in universities and they don't have jobs, there is something severely wrong with that. There is something incredibly wrong with that. Those are the people that, by definition, should have a productive middle class existence, but they don't, because it's easier to get a Bangladeshi or an Indian or someone from Indochina. I know you can't use that term Indochina anymore, but someone from Laos or whoever that, like, I don't understand. Listen, I'm sorry that these third worlders are being educated in like Canadian schools and American universities. I'm sorry, but like the person that is born here in Canada or in America that has a coding degree, a computer science degree, those are the people that are living in their vans. They should be given jobs. Oh, but it's too expensive. They don't want to work. Millennials don't want to work. There's a lot of Heartlanders.
They don't want to work. They don't want to. I mean, the same as
Yeah.
Zoomers. They don't want to work. They don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
But I saw that video. I don't know where it was. Was it in Vancouver? Was it in Toronto? Where it was like the local McDonald's had a job fair or whatever, and it was just millions of foreign students. Like, yeah, absolutely. But I mean,
I get back to Canada and the Timmies, they're speaking Farsi. Like every single employee, is either from Pakistan or India or elsewhere. So it's like,
yeah, millennials just want to play World of Warcraft and Halo. It's not 2007 anymore. It's not. Yeah. And they act like it is. Like, why aren't millennials doing this? It's because they never fucking recovered from the Great Recession. Well, they did. They did recover from the recession. But I mean, like, you still pumped in millions of people to do so. Like, all the high technical degree jobs have now been taken over by like a outside class of janissaries that are going to ensure that you don't have a position here.
And the thing is, like, there's a lot of, in Canada and in America as well, there's a lot of illegal housing for student visa migrants where they like, there's like, you get like a Vietnamese person that like buys a house and they just pack them in, like 9 people, like totally against the building regulations and the fire code, but they just do it because it's like they're living like rats. They have like bare bones jobs, by companies that are, either call bank centers or tech companies that are basically floundering the labor regulations. Well, in Canada, we have the Better Business Bureau. I don't know what you guys have in America.
We also have a Better Business Bureau.
Yeah.
We also have other regulatory bodies.
Do you have Ministry of Labor? What do you guys call it?
We have the Department of Labor.
Yeah, you guys have departments.
We have departments. Yeah.
Canada, we have ministries, or British, the Ministry of Labor.
They're all departments now. Very bureaucratized.
Oh, yeah. But in Canada, it's the same deal, right? Basically floundering regulation. And the thing is, though, to crack down on it would also affect the housing market, which is basically a huge Ponzi scheme that in Canada, that's been immigration's propping it up. And it's the systematic issues are incredible. But my last point, and I want to get your opinion on this, Prude, is that, maybe it's just because I'm too wholesome Chungus or whatever. I'm grating against the right-wing opinion of like, homeless people, the Sam Hyde clip, we're just gonna, millions.
Yeah.
Is that I do have compassion for a lot of homeless people, and a lot of, listen. When leftoids talk about crime being caused by poverty, that is true in some respect, but not in all cases. If you have someone beating someone up on the street, beating women up on the subway in New York at random, that is not a crime of poverty. They have, Air Jordans and iPhones. That's different. But when it comes to a lot of homeless drug addicts that commit petty vandalism and B&Es and so forth, for those who don't know, B&Es mean break and entering, that is caused by poverty to an extent. So I think that I grade against right-wing opinion that I do have a level of compassion for these people and a true state that is functional, a functioning civilization, would not let a mass amount of homeless people, burden social safety nets and cause a lot of socioeconomic problems. And there's human stock in the prison system and on the streets of America and Canada that's just going to waste. That could be the people that could contribute to a productive civilization. This is where I differ from the right wing that has some, power fantasy that wants to just get rid of them, but also the left wing that basically just wants to encourage it. And it's like, well, if they want to go into a drug program, that's fine. But it's like, they should give them clean needles and all that. Now, on grounds of compassion, should we give them clean needles? But should we force them into drug rehabilitation? But also, it's one thing to force them into drug rehabilitation and into institutions. That is not the whole solution. The only way that would be productive is if at the end of their institutionalization, there is a life and an economy and a job that they can go to. That's the only way it can become sustainable. This is the problem with homelessness, is that they need to bring back institutions, but what are you going to do with those people when they're reformed at the end of those institutions? That is the bigger problem with homelessness in North America. And in I hate to say it, in Western Europe as well. But see, in Western Europe, the problem's easier. When it comes to homeless migrants, we're just going to get rid of them. Okay? Like, not get rid of them, not metaphor. I mean, like, you got to send them back. Getting rid of them, I don't want to say that. But I'm saying that, like, the migrant problem, and here's the thing, and the migrant problem is complicated because I do believe, I do agree with the fact that there should be incentives for these migrants in Western Europe to go back to their homelands, and there should be sort of economic zones that can facilitate that, right? Because if you're just getting rid of them and they're going back to utter poverty and war, that of course is not a solution, because they're just going to keep coming back again. And they're being smuggled by NGOs. You have to get rid of the NGOs that smuggle them by outlawing them. You have to get rid of the pipeline of people that smuggle migrants, but also you have to worry about when those migrants go back to their homelands, what are they going to go back to? These issues cannot be solved. And I hate to say it, I really hate to say this, but the compassionate thing to do would almost kind of be like a form of passive colonialism in these African countries. I mean, how is he going to do it? The corrupt governments, a lot of them that were propped up by the American security state to get rid of people like Gaddafi, that's not sustainable. Because if you're just shipping, and what are you going to do? You're going to do like Saudi Arabia. You know what Saudi Arabia does to the Ethiopians that try to cross over into Saudi Arabia?
They shoot them.
They shoot munitions at them. So I don't know. I think, like, and listen, maybe I'm just being too wholesome Chungus, but that kind of is not a solution in the long term anyways. You know what I mean? Maybe just because I'm a Christian, like, the mass slaughtering of people is not a solution. You know what I mean, Prude?
Well,
I know. Listen, I know it's an optical to say this, Prude, in terms of the right wing.
That part doesn't concern me, because I don't think everyone's ever. I have an emphatic desire to focus on those that are already like the displaced and the homeless that I know are, people that have been here and that have been screwed over by deindustrialization, rampant crime policies, and again, what makes it worse is that the idea of like progressive compassion is just to enable them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like that's the issue, right? Is that like your average junkie had probably, either A, they come from a bad background or a home or something like that.
Multi-generational poverty.
That's the thing about having discussions about this, is like, hey, some of the like progressive answer, or like not answers, but like some of the progressive like analysis of this is like, there's some truth to that. There is multi-generational poverty. There is things like, it gets exacerbated when you like don't do anything about, like, when you open up the prisons, when you make it easy to walk out of jail, any aspect of like actual harsh rehabilitation, that all gets thrown out the window. And there's no desire to fix the problem, because for the left, like, you actually kind of want to use the masses of crime that can be there on every whim to answer your problems and your concerns and so on and so forth. Like that's the way about how to handle that. But at the same time, how many of those people have been displaced by deindustrialization, immigration, and not hampering down actually on drug dealing? Like,
Yeah.
that's the big deal. It's like, well, we're not talking, like drug dealers. Okay, great. Like, are you gonna like clamp down on them? No, because at the end of the day, that gets into awkward conversations of like, well, who has the preponderance to be drug dealers?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
like the race question gets brought into it. No one wants to
Yes.
talk about that. This is why that's why the word tough on crime is the big issue here. Because like if you say you're tough on crime, like progressives know that that means anti-black, or that they
Yes.
think that that means it's anti-Hispanic or whatever, like or
Yeah.
anti-poor. And like you're gonna have to root out those problems. And like the way that you solve that is with a firm hand. And unless you're willing to wield power and to use a firm hand to say, like, no, we're going to stop drug dealers.
Yeah.
We're actually going to, like, round up gangs and criminals. We're actually going to be like El Salvador and put them in fucking prison.
100%.
None of that gets solved.
Well,
and the problem is that the compassionate side of Christianity has been weaponized by the left to
Yes.
ensure that lawlessness is the better alternative than to a functioning civilization.
Well, here's the thing I mentioned in this thread, this mini thread, to answer Tiki Wiki's question. I think that we have to balance compassion for homeless people that have been screwed over with protecting innocent people that, cannot sustain huge amounts of crime the way there is in urban centers. I mean, this is the big problem. Policing has to come back, institutions have to come back. And like I said about a passive form of colonialism, my point about the migrants is that there are certain migrants that are just too violent, that have gone around assaulting women. Those people should be sent back. Okay, those people deserve their fate. But in terms of the problems of the migrants in Western Europe, I mean, my point being is that there should be an incentivization to go back to their own places, their homelands, that is economically restructured, because you're just going to keep repeating the cycle over and over again. And let's face it, a lot of the disastrous policies of the Bush and the Obama administrations have led to the migrant crisis. That's another issue. But when it comes to domestic homelessness in North America, I agree. The safety of average common people needs to be sacrosanct. And when it comes, I'm sorry, like I say this, but like Prude, you're mentioning like domestic homeless people that were victims of the Rust Belt. Those people should be catered to. If you're an illegal migrant and you're homeless, I'm sorry, you should go back. I'm sorry, okay? Like there's too many.
It's that
simple. It's that simple. But,
go home.
But when it comes to violence and antisocial behavior, look at what Lee Kuan Yew did. Lee Kuan Yew took the problem of a multicultural civilization in a very relatively small land base. And how are you going to minister these people? Exactly. Certain antisocial behaviors should not be tolerated. That is the point. That is how you solve problems. If you give homeless people a reason to exist and be productive, even by a firm hand, even through institutionalization, but also when it comes to petty crime and assaults on the streets and other issues. I mean, Lee Kuan Yew, you know what he did? The police force would just cane you. Like that, like the whole thing with the subway, what was the guy's name? The guy that Penny choked out, what was his name?
I don't know.
I forget. Who cares, right? The point, not who cares, but I have more compassion.
Jordan Neely was the guy that he chokeholded.
I have more compassion for Penny than
Neely.
The point being
so do I.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, Prude, if you have somebody harassing women on the subway, should there not be a police officer with a cane there? And the thing is, people think that it's brutal and it's cruel. You know what's more cruel than public caning, than corporal punishment? Sending that young person to prison where they learn how to be a better criminal. They're abused by lifers in prison way more than a minor public caning for a few seconds. And they come out of prison, they have a permanent criminal record for life that follows them around. They could never get a good job. And the cycle repeats, the recidivism repeats in the private prison system. What is more compassionate? That person, that Jordan Neely, getting caned in public for harassing women, and maybe he won't do it again, or to send him into prison, he goes in and out of prison, he abuses women again, he harasses people again, and then eventually the tragedy of what happened with what's his first name? Penny?
Daniel Penny.
Daniel Penny. That could have been avoided if we have proper focus on what really matters in civilization. But these issues are very complicated. Homelessness, and the libs are right. The libs are correct. Homelessness is a very complicated issue. How people end up homeless, why they end up homeless, to the degree to which they're homeless. These issues cannot be solved. I hate to say it, but things are getting so bad that they can only be solved if another Caesar Augustus comes along and an administrative state, instead of the half managerialism of the current liberal order, where it's like they kind of manage life, but they kind of don't. They kind of invite social chaos. What if you had true managerialism that dealt with these issues, that balance?
Managerialism has never been tried.
Exactly. No, but the thing that's my point in that thread is that what is a greater dignity? Should they suffer the indignity of being institutionalized by force, or the greater indignity of suffering on the streets as a homeless drug addict? What is a greater indignity? But see, the problem is that the morality of our society does not allow for these questions. And I hate to say it, but even Christian morality, like you were saying, has largely failed. The greater
because
dignity,
we stopped acting like Christians. Like that's the thing.
Exactly.
Like we stopped doing that. Like it's
Yeah.
not that we like Christians aren't the Tika Malone guys that want to heal the world or make it right, because they
Right,
understand that like the world that we want to be a part of is not here. It's not of this
Yes.
world. However,
Yeah.
like the Christian impulse has always been to like get these people shit together. Because
Yes.
like if you're gonna enter, if like you're not gonna enter the kingdom of heaven acting like a fucking homeless drug addict, like you're not. And unfortunately, because we've allowed ourselves to
Yeah.
fall into this notion of separating church from state in America, like, you know, within a couple of generations, you know, within my parents' lifetime, churches stopped being like, you know, church influence in schools disappeared, public prayer
Yep.
disappeared, Bible reading disappeared because of a bunch of atheists and some other snot-nosed freaks that decided that, hey, the morality that built this country was no longer necessary.
Yeah.
And in doing so, what's happened is that we've allowed rampant aspects of crime to be unleashed and to say that, you know, it's not our place when,
Yeah.
you know, actually we shouldn't spare the rod and we should punish the child lest we ruin them. And instead, like, yeah, we've got a bunch of people acting like children that are expecting the state to act as the parent that
Yeah.
knows that no matter what they do, if they're a certain type of color, if they're a certain type of person, they will never be punished for their crimes because they're considered the elect by the
Yeah.
secular state and government. And I'm sorry, like, if that does mean caning people, if that does mean tasing, if that does mean doing X, Y, and Z to stop or heal the problem.
Or having a communal police system where police officers know who you are.
Well, I
and
mean,
they
you
cane
get that,
you.
you get that in small towns, though. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier where
Yeah.
I live to like have a better relationship with my sheriff and law enforcement than it is in the city. And
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you know, in a lot of ways, like, yeah, policing is usually an interethnic communal thing. Like, I mean, for a long time, like the NYPD was still a bunch of like Irish guys.
Racist Irish cops.
Or those racist Irish cops, you know, despite the fact that like they haven't done it. I don't think that the NYPD has its own issues, but like,
Oh yeah.
it to me, it illustrates that like, hey, we just stopped doing our job. Like the moral imperative and the commands that we were given, like we stopped
Yeah.
using them, and instead we've just allowed the most rampant kind of debauched governance to do it. Because I'm sorry, the indignant thing for
100%.
me. And the indignant thing for the person who's like a drug addict or the Michael Jackson impersonator or whatever, the real indignity of the fact is that we tolerate this shit. That's the
letting
real
them do it.
indignity.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they're even allowed to do what they do is an indignity
Yeah.
and an atrocity, and it should not be the case. But lo
Yeah.
and behold, here we are, and this is what we have to put up with, and this is what we're going to have to deal with, which is wrong, and it's not the right way to go about things. But nevertheless, like this is where we're at because we've decided to not reform. And our ideas of reform is just deconstruction or abolition. And we've already seen what that looks like. You can take a look at Angela Davis and all of the like gun running that she did and was arrested for. Like everyone forgets that like we had the Capitol bombed in the 1970s by leftist terrorists. The only thing that's changed is that leftist terrorists now work for the government.
Yeah.
And I see this every lens and, you know, level of my country.
How many honorary degrees has been given to Angela Davis by multiple universities?
That's a great question. I'm going to go look it up.
Yeah, she has a lot. She has a lot.
Honorary degrees.
I'm curious now.
She got one from Moscow during the 1970s. Look at that.
Beast. No, I'm kidding. I'm not Jackson Hinkle, okay? I'm not Jackson Hinkle. But
I mean, her doctoral advisor. Like, this is such a strange thing to think about. Her doctoral advisor was Marcuse. And
really?
And who else who else has a relationship to Marcuse?
That's amazing. But also, I will say that, you know, my spiel about the compassion for the homeless, that is also met with Prude, what you were saying.
Honorary degree from East Germany, the University of Leipzig. Sorry, I'm just going to go
Whoa.
through all these. Let's see here. Honorary degree in Humane Letters and Social Justice from the California Institute of Legal Studies.
I think the University of Toronto gave her one too.
The University of Halifax, Nova Scotia,
Oh,
with an
Halifax.
honorary degree.
Beautiful.
Gee, but
Beautiful.
yeah, these people get rewarded.
A literal terrorist. Yeah, yeah, God, you know. But yes,
my rage is palpable, and my day is ruined.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I was gonna say, Prude, to meet with that, you know, our assertion about how to solve homelessness, you got to realize that this is also tandem with actual like criminal justice in the sense that there are certain criminals in America. I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to most optical language possible. They can't be around anymore in civilization. There's a certain percent of criminal that, yeah, my compassion has limits. There's a certain percent of criminal that probably cannot be tolerated in society. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of it. It's the reality of it. So I think a lot of people in American prisons probably don't deserve to be there. The people that do deserve to be in American prison, you know, is there any benefit to keeping them
Actual
around?
criminals?
Actual criminals that actually do harm. Gio, who to get the death penalty? Well, a lot of major criminals that probably deserve it. I'm sorry, but you know, I'm sorry, libs, but you're gonna have to go. I'm sorry. You're gonna have those people. You know, I don't mean to go there. I don't mean to go there, but you're kind of a psychopath that wants to harm innocent people, and you kind of
need
have
to go to the stockade.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's a certain level of crime that cannot be tolerated. But but also another interesting thing about the welfare system is that, you know, I was mentioning this to my GF. Someone mentioned discipline and punish in the chat. I think it was Gloth. You could actually make a Foucauldian argument for Bukele in the sense that the real panopticon, the real sort of carceral society, is the private prison recidivism rates that is an outcome of the private prison system, not a bug of it. It's a feature, not a bug, because they rely on that recidivism to create a total carceral society. You know how you end, and Foucauldians in university, the libs, would be absolutely incensed by what I say, but I don't care. Screw your optics, okay? You know how you end a deplorable carceral society that Foucault talks about? You actually lock up criminals. You actually lock up dangerous people, and you break that chain of recidivism. You break that chain of criminal recruiting, and you break that chain of recidivism that wreaks havoc on ordinary people, right? That is the real restorative justice. And the people that are petty criminals that could be reformed, major prison systems are not for them. They belong in halfway houses administered by the state. They belong in asylums, in institutions, and farm job training programs. Those are the people that are like minor, you know, drug addicts that get clipped for minor offenses. The sex worker issue is another thing too. I mean, unfortunately, listen, even Thomas Aquinas said this, that there's always going to be the prosty universally. Now, am I saying that a society should facilitate that? No. But is it a reality that there will always be that level of work in society? Yes. Okay. And I know, like, a lot of people, they have this fantasy about getting rid of them or whatever. But, you know, I again, I have compassion for those women that work in incredibly dangerous societies. A lot of them are drug addicts themselves. A lot of them were abused by pimps. Should pimps go?
Yeah.
Prude, you know the answer, right? So,
yeah.
Yes. Should drug dealers go?
Yeah.
It's easy. You know, it's easy, right? It's easy.
The list just makes it easier once you start asking me
yeah.
who needs to go, or who needs to go into the stocks or whatnot.
Yes.
Like, sorry, you know.
I'm sorry. Like I've talked to homeless people. I've talked to homeless women who have sold themselves, and you know, in university and out of university. And it's tragic. These people, it's incredibly tragic that these people, and a lot of these people, they do have children. A lot of these women used to live productive lives, but they were preyed upon by other elements of the quote unquote sex industry. and the history of it just goes on and on. A lot of them come from multi-generational welfare recipients and so forth. Even the welfare issue, I hate to say it. Listen, I know it's like a Milton Friedman fantasy, but to get rid of like welfare wholesale will kind of unleash an apocalypse of chaos in America. That's, you know what I mean? Like it's easy to cut the welfare off, but what are you going to do after you cut the welfare off? No, listen, Brent, I didn't know. Listen, I'm not prowling. It means like I knew a person who actually was who actually worked for the she was like one of these community organizer people that worked with sex workers on the streets, and a lot of these stories are very tragic. This person unfortunately died. She was a friend of my mother's, but you know, a lot of these stories are very horrific. They come from abuse. They come from being molested as children. Can I say the word in YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of these women, they come from being molested as children. A lot of Indigenous women, as I mentioned on the stream yesterday with Oren. I have a lot of compassion for this. Who I don't have compassion for are the prostitutes and a lot of the strip clubs even that facilitate this. They should be shut down. If you, and there's a lot of organized crime. There's
a lot of money laundering.
Yeah, money laundering, drugs that go through strip clubs, women that engage in this stuff that are basically being plied with drugs that come from fatherless homes. Their mothers themselves were part of a lot of nefarious things. Like these are huge social problems, and it's getting worse. And I hate to say it, Prude, but I'm coming to the conclusion that a benevolent form of authoritarianism is the only solution here. There's so many mass problems, and it all relates back to deindustrialization as well. That's a whole stream in itself.
Yeah,
a lot of very evil corporations have worked with a lot of very evil bankers to deindustrialize the West, and the thing is, you could blame the Chinese all you want, but who really facilitated that?
Here in America, it started here.
Exactly. So a lot of very evil people have flew under the radar and have made billions of dollars in the banking industry by basically destroying the human capital of North America and now Western Europe. And it's deplorable. There's a lot of people that need to be answered for. And yeah, Louis Cachet, you're right. We could fantasize about this, but the reality is that there's no seriousness in both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, and here in Canada, and in Western Europe, and in the EU. There's really no serious people that realize that, like, isn't it kind of demonstrably evil to destroy the citizens that you were entrusted with protecting? Right. I remember we were in a like a greasy spoon, me and my girlfriend in America. And she goes, when you look at all these people, these old people, these people with families, why would you want to inflict the horror of a lot of urban centers on them? Why would you want to, import the excesses of the empire and inflict them on these people that don't know any better?
Yeah.
And it's like it's terrible. These people they
don't know.
Yeah, why do you think they voted for Trump?
Because they look at it and they want to get away from it.
Exactly. And let's go back to the famous tweet by our friend James Kirkpatrick.
Yeah,
a lot of American life is making enough money to escape the machination.
Consequences of the Civil Rights Act.
Exactly. So it's I'm sorry, Prude. We were ranting for an hour on homelessness. It's just it really gets my goat because all these people are good people. A lot of them are criminals. A lot of these sex workers, they had a chance. They were exploited, and it's terrible. And the people that have exploited them, well, we've Fed posted enough, Prude, I feel, but
I don't even think it's that Fed posty to acknowledge that, like, hey, the system that has been designed here. Like, this is the thing that I've noticed, and I feel like it needs to be reiterated when these things get discussed, is that every person, and like I'm just to reference Lippmann, is just like everyone lives in their own bubble. And like our actual human eyes and vision we have a tendency that when we look around us, we're going to notice one or two things and our eyes will pay attention to that more. And the details get a little fuzzy in that respect.
Yeah.
And so it gets hard to look at a whole picture. Because for us, like, we're not going to be able to see the whole thing in general. And it's going to cause us to be a little not see everything in that respect.
Right.
And homelessness is one of those issues because, yeah, it would be easy to just be like, yeah, we're going to liquidate all of the homeless. We're going to implement a Jonathan Swift-like solution, Soylent Green.
Hashtag cartoonishly evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, it's like our friend Remnant. He's ontologically evil. Like, when you get to that point, like there's no discourse there. Like the actual, like, this is why I find it so funny is that the left, and that goes back to another tweet. The people who can't define what a woman is know what the word ontological has its implications. The only ontological evil thing here is that we've let evil win and rule for a lengthy period of time. And so, and I'm watching all these people just act so gutless about the, people that want to offer solutions, whether they're Christians or not. And it's just like, oh, these people are evil. They're Austrian painters or whatever. And it's just like, so you'd rather just stand by and let the worst things that have come to this country continue that took place in your lifetime. I'm not talking to David French and other people like him. Like, y'all saw this. Y'all play through with it. And y'all are happy to live in your towers there. And so when a concentrated people that are coming together, and this is the thing that I might kind of push back a little on Scott Greer a little bit, because like he had posted this tweet saying like a record number of 73 million Americans bet on the NFL, or they're going to this year. And it's just like, doesn't that kind of like validate the elite theory type stuff just a little bit, that like you want concentrated people to change the culture once they take power? Like, I mean, if I'm in charge of the messaging and then all of a sudden like the NFL is going to go back to like, Creed singing shit like it's 2002, then like, yeah, it'd probably be a way better place to start cranking things back rather than the 6 messages on their helmets or on the football field saying like, fuck Whitey. Like we could do better. It's not a great start, but again, there are ways in which
I'd much rather go back to hockey fights than rainbow jerseys every month, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I always have to chuckle like, we're going to go back to rainbow jerseys and shit. And I'm like, aren't most of the guys that are like, it's the whitest sport left. Oh, yeah. It's also the highest concentration of Eastern Europeans that don't put up with this shit. So I'm like, hopefully hockey can be like the last bastion of like Nordic white identity. But anyways, like it's a disaster. But when you have these conversations with like leftists, like it's how our friend Dave the Distributist points out. It's like a chatbot resets. They hear your points and then, chatbot resets. And that's where we're at.
There is more Asians in hockey now. I know. Well, the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, he's actually a really good player, is a Suzuki. And, for example, the Penguins, Pittsburgh Penguins, they had a good guy. What was his name? Aziz. He was a pretty good enforcer. He used to fight Colton Orr from Toronto back in the in the 2000s. But yeah, it is still largely a white sport. I mean, there's always been African American players. I mean, even back in the 60s, there was a few African American players. Toronto just drafted one of the best enforcers in the whole league, Ryan Reeves. He is also an African American gentleman. Evander Kane, although I had to say that Evander Kane does play pretty dirty. It's it's. But I mean, I know what you mean. Like the whole, like, listen, I agree. Sports is a distraction, and I could never get into football. I hate to say it.
It's not my thing.
It's not my thing. It's too rules based. I don't know. It's kind of.
I don't know. You stop every like 15 seconds, and we're gonna have a shit ton of commercials. Like I'm just, it's not my preferred cup of tea either. It's not my thing.
Yeah. Did you see the discourse around the football mom?
I didn't see the discourse. I saw the video.
Yeah, jumping on the
but not weird. my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I mean, I did cross country in high school. It's not like I was doing. It's not like I was.
Did your mom jump on you like that, Prude?
No.
Yeah. What does your mom look like, by the way?
That's a weird question to ask.
Does she look like you?
Air, Gio. God, I would hope so. Or I hope I look like my mother to some extent, and the fact that she's my mom, biologically speaking. What the fuck, Gio?
How old's your mom?
What are you doing? I thought you were into younger women, not older women.
I was in. What are you talking about, Prude? Have you been paying attention this whole time? Anyways.
My mother is very thin. She's not your type.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
You saved yourself. Look at how many Gios are in the chat. Listen, I'm hitched, so don't worry about it. I'm just asking.
You're hitched.
This doesn't mean anything.
Are you pussy whipped there, Gio?
No,
as they say.
Yes, I'm longhoused.
Oh,
no,
God,
one of the best
keep
tweets
it
came
that
from
way.
Radfam, where she's like, women out here breeding the husbands that they always wanted. Like, oh my God.
See, this is why I stand by my digital ayahuasca like position on the internet, because I will take this drug, this digital DMT or ayahuasca, and I will listen to real demons live on the digital astral plane, like Radfem and Ayala. So
she's nice in real life, though. I can't say that much for Radfem, but I mean, sorry, for Ayala, but apparently Radfem's nice in real life. I mean, she's nice to me, so
let him be accursed.
That was a hilarious tweet, though. I gotta admit,
respecting shit.
That was a hilarious tweet, though. There are women in America, pretending to be married for 30 years. Oh my God. No, another take from another woman that I thought to end our discussion on the homeless. I hope she didn't delete it, but no, Radfem, she's not my GF, and she's not my type, really. I mean,
yeah, she is.
She could gain weight.
Yeah, she is. They're secretly together.
No, I'm kidding. No, that would be a shock to my GF.
He's the Hitler in Radfem Hitler.
Radfem could gain some weight. She's too skinny for me, but no, oh my God. No, a great tweet. I think she deleted it because she always deletes her bangers. What comes from her good friend Catherine. She said the same people that talk about prison abolition for hardened criminals are the same people that think that racists shouldn't have bank accounts. So there you go.
True. So true. Oh man. Well, that was awkward. Thanks, Gio.
Sorry, Prude. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. Somebody rescue the show fast. Well, thankfully, he is. You must be new to the show. Gio is an architect. He is a
Do you
man
think I
that
could
likes
be?
sturdy
You think Radfem could tolerate me? I'd be a pretty good boyfriend to Radfem Hitler. I think. I don't know.
I hope your girlfriend chews you out after the show.
She will.
Just for that comment alone.
My GF actually reads Radfem. No, I shouldn't admit that in public. She reads Radfem too.
It's over. It's over.
It's over.
It's over. It's over. God bless.
What was hilarious when we were together, we were reading the one where she was like arguing with Pearly things. That was pretty funny. My GF goes, he's like, look what Radfem
I know, and she reads Radfem Hitler tweets. I think Brent's right. You're gonna have to take her last name there, Gio. It's over for you. Turn in the man card. It's over. It's over.
Oh boy. Oh, I'm gonna get a text pretty soon. Gio speed running any percent.
Like an 18-carat run of bad luck. It turns out she was reading Radfem Hitler tweets, and well, the game was rigged from the start. It's over for real. Oh, it's over. It's so over. God bless America.
It's over. Yeah.
Well, the last thing that I had for us today was from our good friend Randy over at eggreport.substack.com. He's one of my favorite writers on Twitter. And actually, I'm going to share where's my Twitter screen for it so I can bring up this issue because it really is, unfortunate. But so our good friend Randy also goes by Egg Report on Twitter. He goes at Cum Lasagna, which is funny.
Yeah.
But anyways, he's got a terrible issue of someone impersonating his account. And I wanted to.
Is it one of those 88 accounts? Or
no, it's one of those like trying to be him accounts. So I have it up here on screen. If you can like help mass report the issue for impersonation, I think that would be good, because it's
Elon really does enforce that impersonation.
Yeah, he does, and I've reported it, and but what's worse is that he's reported it himself dozens of times with no avail. But if we could do that for our friend Randy, or Egg Report, or Garfield Bot, however you want to go by him, I would recommend that, just because that stuff sucks. I know Dave the Distributist also has one.
Morgoth.
So Morgoth's got one. So like, there's this wave of imposter accounts that are going out and about.
Fisher King had like,
he had like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
but
there's another person that had one recently.
But notice this: it was joined March 2011. Like
they buy accounts.
They buy accounts. So whoever's doing this, like, this is either a coordinated thing or something. But if you see accounts that are not your favorite people that are taking the names and faces or whatever, do report them.
What is the person tweeting though? Let's.
Yeah, I mean,
is it like just crypto scams, or is it like
no, like financial advice, but also like trying to impersonate him for him, like tweet for tweet?
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But I say all this because he wrote this little article. I have not finished reading it, but I liked the title, and so I thought we might read it today and see what the heck it's about. It's called "Beyond Breakfast: The NPC Question," and I thought this would be a delightful thing for us to read. I'm going to go zoom in on it so a little bit. It's a part 1, but he's, it's all, I like his writing. I think he's a good writer. So today we're going to talk about the NPC question. And here we go. I do seriously think, though, if you do see accounts that are impersonating or shit like that, report and let us know so we can identify and report as well. But all right, so Beyond Breakfast, the NPC question, part 1, introduction, repetition, expression, objectification. Here we go. A popular factoid to drop while making conversation at a dinner party is, despite how we might imagine being humanity's greatest fear, a study shows that public speaking is leagues ahead of heights or spiders or drowning. As a man who has both overcome that fear and has had a minor career as a public speaker, and a man who is currently reading The Ordeal of Civility, I have made some connections. I have some ideas. This is an older article of his. This is quite entertaining. In a previous blog post about road rage, comparing it to internet rage, I proposed a mental psychological mechanics of a private and public sphere. The concept of road rage is a product of an internal confusion between the two categories, where a transgression is felt more intimately than it would otherwise, because the subject confuses the public space of the road with his own psychological private space. How dare you disrespect me in my own home? This thesis here is an elaboration on this concept. In road rage, I assumed the categories as universal for the sake of explaining a singular phenomenon. Here we investigate how this category comes about and their consequences. In fact, the thesis is their non-universality, and their car and phone as examples as not small particularities, but as a symptom of a more fundamental problem. It is my contention that the mental category of public space is a direct but second-order effect of being initiated into what we commonly call politeness or manners. That is, the arbitrary courtesies of saying yes, please, may I, excuse me, as a necessary but not itself sufficient prerequisite for constructing in the individual mental concept of the public space, as differentiated from owned space or space owned by another, or space owned by no one, nature, wilderness, or perhaps a prerequisite for what we call common ground. So far, that makes sense to me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, our politeness or trying to like get by, excuse me, thanks, please. I mean, those are public space things. I mean, if you have good manners, you use them in private. But
well, what's interesting? Well, I was going to say what's interesting about this article is that he hit the nail on the head in a way that's like theory sellish but understandable. Understanding is that basically when people are confronted with social situations, they have to find a way to make it personalized and to blend the lines between private and public spaces to integrate their own sort of psychic energy into them. And for example, use the example of car road rage, where you think you're in a private space in your car because it's your car, but you're in a public infrastructure of the road. And so there's a lot of psychological wires that get crossed. But when it comes to manners and sort of over socialization, there's an intuiting of people can intuit social situations, but I guess what he's saying is that the NPC cannot intuit it, and they're purely a creature of what Heidegger calls the they. They're just the they, and there's sort of no intuitive grasping involved in that. It's basically they're just always living externally. that is what he's talking about. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly here. It's
Mm.
just that, I mean, like, one of my things that I am working on is that sort of like a road rage bit. I am sort of quick to call somebody a jerk or say worse things while I'm on the road. And like, I have no control over what another person does, but like, it's also the fact that the car is an extension of your body, because like you are driving this vehicle, and if something happens to the car, odds are you're going to get affected by it too and get killed. So I mean,
Hmm.
um but whereas internet rage, right, like the internet is also this like quasi public space, and like, yeah, you can get mad about what other people say about you or like what you see. Like, again, that's why it's very hard not to fed post when I'm on Oren's channel, because it's just like, I wish we weren't reading the most like enraging lefty, journalism. But I get where he's going.
Oh yeah.
But he says, I contend. Oh, here we go. When we talk about being able to tell the difference between fantasy, media, and etc. in real life, we're most often talking about being able to tell the difference between private and public space. The longhouse/shuttle, there is no private life. Women can't tell video games from real life. I contend that the meme/phenomenon of the NPC, the non-player character, is the discovery of a kind of man or a woman who either is not developed this mental category sufficiently, or is in a state of overt rejection and resignation towards it for various reasons, which we will speculate or elaborate on later. It goes like this. Teaching politeness rituals is prerequisite for introspection because it teaches the private-public distinction, which is necessary psychological component for reflection itself, as reflection requires objectifying yourself to yourself. Theory of mind is not enough. Without the theory of public space, you remain what McLuhan calls tribal for the rest of your life. Yeah, I'm tracking
yeah.
so far. The development from early Christian concepts of charity to medieval chivalry to modern civility is a psychological development of introspection, where the individual is becoming gradually more sentient, self-aware. A deeper integration of charity leads to higher levels of consciousness. Basically, civilization is not an accident, and it's not an accident that it's what it's called. The modern NPC of a leader following TV believing thoughtlessness is not a question of intelligence or hypnosis or getting tricked by charismatic leaders. It is the conscious or subconscious rejection of what we might call the psychological public life. So we've got the private space, me, theory of mind, private space, public space, the other. And now we've got this public space in there as well. So, I mean, I'm actually with this so far. Like, we don't recognize that there is a public life, or that everything is a part of my life. Everything affects me. And it's kind of funny because I think this also comes out of the expansion of the public space and the public sphere. Like, Edmund Burke famously called like the public space to be a good thing because now every man could be educated and can have an opinion on everything, which makes society better. It encourages introspection. And it kind of makes me think of that Lin-Manuel Rwanda tweet where he's just like, liberalism for 130 plus IQ Anglos. Because it's just, because like James Kirkpatrick commented on it, where he's just like, well, for some people, it really is. The law gets imbued with like magical powers, like the Magna Carta or the Constitution. And that makes it very easy to create civilization, but at the same time, it makes it very easy to be subverted. And I think that when it comes to, say, the concept of like the NPC, right? Like, your idea being integrated in public life, or thinking that there is a public distinction, is only separated by your phone, right? Like, you're only separated by the thin veil of the internet. And then for a lot of those people, that veil doesn't exist anymore because the internet does become our real life. And we talk about this all the time on this show as well. Like, Twitter isn't real life, but it is real life because it does affect our day-to-day discourse, how we view things. The medium is the message and the massage. Like, our mind thinks and tweets. It comprehends our ability to understand how this is going to affect discourse, or how are people going to perceive things. And if you don't have the ability to acknowledge that, like, that's only one facet of your life, then like, yeah, that becomes your everything. And I think that it's ways in which you create cults of personality where, it's not just like, you can be a charismatic leader on the internet, but for you, this is it. This is life. And there's nothing else that exists outside of it. You will tune in. You will be like certain bread tubers and MAGA commies that say, if you don't like and retweet this tweet, you're kicked out of my Discord. Like, that's their life. And they don't have a concept or a frame of reference out of it.
But it's a weird sort of blending of the public and private, but the sense, Byung-Chul Han talks about this. You were always with the public anyways. You are with the infinite eyes of the internet all the time. And so you preempt that social conditioning by either hardening your heart to it and just posting sincerely, or by being absorbed into whatever social trend there is. And in a sense, the self gets obliterated through that. But also there is people that like treat the public internet as like a private space. And then there's sort of like, I remember Schwab had this once where he's like,
Public internet and private internet.
yeah, it's like they treat like the TL as a public space. It's sort of like hipsters that go into a public cafe and start strumming their guitar or their ukulele, and it's like very hipsterish behavior. And like a lot of people do this that are obnoxious, and it's like, but there is a lot of different psychological inversions between what we think of as public and private space, but also how we mold ourselves to it. Like that like there's a lot of very interesting pathologies that people develop and how to deal with being in a space that treats itself as if it is your private domain, but in reality is still a public space. So yeah, exactly. Huh. Yeah.
Oh, so true. So true.
Even dealing with people like people, they think that blocking you is like some, like blocking them is some big own or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is strange. But yeah, like, oh, he blocked me, I owned him, and it's just like, I don't want to tolerate you.
Yeah,
it's not.
You're beneath me, actually.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
I don't think about you at all. You're like a gnat that keeps buzzing by my ear. So yeah. But we'll continue on here. He says, repetition, slogans, and pop culture references. As I was writing the first notes of this text in the lunchroom at work, a coworker entered the room to inspect the day's menu, asking the chef a certain dish was made from, and learning it was kebab, and she broke into song, some commercial jingle or pop song or something from a TV show. I don't really know. I didn't get the reference. It wasn't funny, and it wasn't intended to be. It is well known that a well-timed joke relieves social tension. But what does a reference do? What does a reference that's specifically category not funny do? What is the mechanical thing happening here? The reference is a way to escape social expectations of a refined behavior masquerading as a joke. It escapes the social in its entirety. It rejects it. It supplants and sublimates it with its private, because the reference is always to electronic media, which is by its design is immersive as a perfectly private experience. Yeah, I think that's really that's on point to me.
Mm-hmm.
The reference is a way to escape social expectations. Like, oh, and I mean, I do it too in a way to be sarcastic, but usually most people on the internet are in on the joke. But like in real life, if you're making like bizarre references to like niche shit on the internet or like a commercial jingle, it's just like, so we're not talking about anything meaningful here, and you're just trying to avoid like contributing to the conversation. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a deliberate escape hatch from what you're supposed to do. And like sometimes the reference can be really funny if it's like, and again, I'm referencing the internet, which probably only like indicts me here, but like the that one tweet from like, what was his name, Lebetarian or something, back during the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, he was making a reference to Shakespeare. But he says, my favorite Shakespeare adaptation is Rosenbaum and Grosskreutz are dead. And like, it's, Rosencrantz and Gilderstein are dead. And it was like, that was very clever, but like, not many people are like the reference, like that's funny, but like a social reference to like a TV saying or something, probably not. Right. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm into it so far. I'm with him. In the electronic age, sharing a vulgar media reference has replaced politeness rituals. And instead of gesturing to other people in the room, socializing, we instead gesture to ourselves. Referencing a Game of Thrones and Star Wars is private because the experience of watching TV is a private experience. So the anxiety of public speaking in a normal social situation, you dilute your anxiety by summoning the private experience. And instead of being in a public space and enduring its inherent psychological stress that it entails, the cultural reference is a way to temporarily mutually hypnotize yourself back into a safe, private space. It's detaching yourself from the other. Instead of looking to each other's eyes, you both regress back into yourself and look at yourself looking. Look at your backside with your own eyes. The effect of mass media is the destruction of the public space, the dissolution of the distinction.
You look at yourself looking. That's a good. Yeah.
It's kind of exhibitionist in a lot of way.
That's also the basis of kitsch, in a way.
Yeah,
because you're it's second order in that you're enjoying the fact that you're enjoying something, or you're finding pleasant in the fact that you find this pleasant, that everyone finds this pleasant, or whatever. And it extends into politics as well. Is that you are, you are enjoying the fact that you have this sentiment. I mean, all activist politics in a way is kitschfied reality, and that you are creating a narrative that you enjoy the fact that you enjoy this narrative and that you're a part of it. And it's like, that's so, yeah. And the mass media, that's basically, yeah, it's reducing sight inward to that I am looking at looking itself, that I'm watching Game of Thrones because everyone else watches Game of Thrones. And so
I am doing it so I'm not left out. There go.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch this because it's the public that I'm more concerned about.
Yeah.
And in turn, you reference it back. So you can go back to the safe space of, oh, I'm doing what's socially required of me. And I mean, like we do, I don't know if I don't, probably we do it to some extent, but I mean, in public, right? Like the person that's going to tell you about the latest TV show or like, oh, do you watch this? Like, I don't, and I don't actually kind of, to some extent, I also don't watch a lot of television because I don't want to like engage in that weird, like, once you start talking about TV with somebody, right, to some extent, I think it's like, we're both engaging in this very intimate act where like, I'm now intruding upon your private space and you're now intruding upon mine, but it's consensual because we're both talking about this medium of television that we're enjoying, but like, it sort of zaps everyone else out of the conversation because you're now sharing this like commercialized intimate moment. It's very strange, but very real.
Yeah, commercialized intimate moment, an intimate moment that we all experience.
Yeah.
Sort of beyond the point, you know?
Yeah, that orgiastic feeling of ratioing somebody or something like that, you know? Like there's an online internet experience, which is quite entertaining. But to continue on, when the NPC, the man who is in resignation, references a song or jingle, he is casting a spell to avoid the experience of being in public. When people react to the reference, they're not performing a social connection, but they are using it as a way to escape the public space, as a way back into the immersive private sphere. Virtual existence is entirely private. Yeah, like we were just talking about, that private sphere, that private intimacy. Although the content doesn't need to be vulgar, the reference always is, and in by itself, because it is the purpose of it to escape the tension of public expectations of behavior, decorum, which is experienced as a kind of ability, social skills, which can be failed or excelled at. Yeah, I mean, like even the like nerdy kids in high school or whatever could make references to things because they couldn't socially perform to have conversation or propose new ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, so instead what you do is you just critique things, or you pretend that you that weird mic noise was me typing. I don't know. I shouldn't engage with certain people, but no, because it was some leftist replying to my homeless thread, and I don't know. I think it's some Black Lives Matter person.
I mute quite a few. I mute threads or things that I noticed get popular, you know.
Yeah. No, but I think I mean, I know I delete a lot of bangers, but no, I think like I was pretty reasonable in my outlining of homelessness. But anyways, it's sort of like this. It's like where you, what Egg Report is saying is like you sort of just emptily, in an empty fashion, you critique things, and you like pretend that you have. I have a term for it. It's like the too cool for school attitude, where it's like I'm above this, I know it all, but it's like I don't want to bother engaging with any sort of like genuine discourse or like, you know, putting in work on an intellectual level, because that's like, you know, that's above me. You know, I hate people like that. But, you know.
Yeah. Or like or they'll use these pop culture things or these private immersive experiences as like their only hermeneutical tool to like look at the world. And so like, I think you see this a lot in like, if you go to like a Barnes and Noble or any like major chain bookstore and you go to the philosophy section, it's all these like major chains of books that are God. Mad Men and philosophy, or like Star Wars and philosophy. And it's just like, I don't want to use Star Wars or Mad Men as my only tool to like look at someone
mediating reality.
To like mediate reality or to mediate philosophy. Like, I don't want to use Luke Skywalker to talk about like Joseph Campbell or whatever, or like, you know, Dewey and utilitarianism. Like, why would I bother when I could just read those guys for myself? But again, it's that retreat from public intellectualism, the understanding of how the world works, into a private escape and immersive experience.
Yeah.
We might otherwise call this narcissism, but in this context, narcissism is not so much as a mental illness, but a kind of NPC-ism. Either cowardice or the lack of ability to speak in public. Many are capable who do not attempt it. Many are simply incapable, having not developed the psychological necessities to enable it. More on this in part 2. which that'll come later, I'm sure. Self-expression and objectification. My career as a public speaker taught me in a painful and intimate way that it doesn't matter how sincere, direct, and open and transgressing private boundaries you are, no matter how heartfelt your expression, it always becomes reduced to an act once you are on stage. You cannot be fully human on stage, not in the way you want to, at least. So true. Whether you're a public speaker or at a charity event or on theater stage, like, it does not matter. You're not ever fully yourself when you're doing it. It is an act for sure. This is just an aspect of the public sphere, and the difference between being a good and bad public speaker is learning to lean into it and accept it, work with it. The arbitrary bourgeoisie politeness of may I and please and so on are exactly as fake as your most heartfelt, intimate expression of expressionism about your hurt feelings or romantic gestures or deep thoughts the moment you express them in a public space. There's a difference in scale, but not in category. The joke resolves social tension. It allows you to remain in the public sphere. The reference is an anti-joke, and that it works in the exact opposite way, as in a way to escape the public sphere. In all public speaking art performance, you are objectifying yourself. That is unavoidable, because you would that is what stepping out of the private and into the public sphere, showing off your private sphere to the public, is you are making the private sphere an object in the public. So necessarily it feels lesser being an object rather than the world itself. So back to the image.
Wait, go over that again about making the private sphere an object of
Yeah, so when we're showing ourselves off, when we're making an act of our private lives in the public sphere, you are making the private sphere an object in the public space. So necessarily it feels lesser being an object rather than the world itself. So
that's like what Humdog said in like she about the case of abuse that other psychologists on the mud forums or on the well forum was talking about. And yeah, it's like it's like this weird way of, which I think the problem, and we've talked about this before about the internet age, is that the sort of attack on sincerity. How can you balance sincere opinion and sentiment, even a sort of therapeutic expression of your inner life in a public forum, without devolving into the spectacle of that? This is how drama gets started on the internet, by the way. Yeah. Someone sincere posts, drama starts, drama becomes a lurid form of content onto itself, and then nothing gets resolved from that.
Absolutely. Nothing does get resolved.
And then drama mongers, they eat themselves too. So
yeah, like the once you make an act out of it, or like these things get exposed, it is a little performance piece. But when you're on the internet, there is no curtain call unless you get banned or you permanently log off, because you can always come back and you can always have this stuff relitigated every time you appear on a podcast or whatever.
Well, sometimes there is curtain calls where you get together. Well, I'm referring to the Madison Square Garden curtain call. If you're a wrestling fan, there's moments where you reveal the kayfabe, and that itself is like a form of like where podcasting becomes like drama shoot interviews.
Yeah,
where it's like, let's reveal what really happened in the group chats.
Yeah, it's just
let's reveal something in our group chat, Prude. Did you know that Martin was going after Brahmin people recently?
Oh, how can I not when I see Indian Wojaks on my timeline? Absolutely, right? But like, it's the drama never ends. But also we want the act to continue because it drives up engagement, and we turn nothing more into these like husks of actors, and that's it.
My favorite reply to Martin was, "Show me your mother's OnlyFans." No, but yeah, exactly. Like when it becomes a spectacle of crossing those boundaries. Now, also we have to realize that which I think Randy was alluding to here, is that the distinction between, and we don't just mean politics, right? We mean like when Schmidt talks about it, but like the distinction between public and private is a relatively recent invention. A lot of societies, even ancient Rome and ancient Greece, public rituals were internalized personally because they make up the character of the polis as an individual, but also as a social being as well. Because the Greeks had a very funny view of individuality. You were an individual, you were your own person, but yet you were informed by that social awareness and by the public rituals of that particular city-state. So the public-private distinction was always from the very beginning. I know this is very much a Giorgio Agamben type of thing, like, where he says, like, well, no, biopower was always there. Biopower was in ancient Greece. The public-private distinction being blurred was also in ancient Greece. In a lot of more basic tribal societies, even more so, there's no such thing as private life, really. So, yeah, I mean, relatively recent. Of course, you could say that public-private distinction comes about from a very particular Anglo and Germanic view of Protestant Christianity and the sort of like the sacredness of private existence that then gets challenged and then gets selectively applied, especially after the Civil Rights Act. But even before that, the public-private life in America, even way back to the yeoman farmer, was complicated out of necessity in the colonies. And in Eastern and Western Europe as well, public-private distinctions were propped up in some respects, especially in Germany among Germanic people. But there was also community. There was also, like in Scandinavia, there was a form of communitarianism out of necessity of the harsh climate that was that dictated that, the distinction between public and private was sort of like almost non-existent in some cases.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's a greater sociological and historical point, but
yeah.
If you have any thoughts on that, Prude, How did America become obsessed with private space, by the way? Is it just the product of Anglo-Germanic, or is it something else,
Well, I don't know, because I don't actually know enough sociology to maybe answer that question. But in a more 20th century phenomenon, I think that the public, what gets labeled now as sort of that like Karen bit, or like that puritanical like moral mocking that people don't like. I mean, the invention of privacy as we kind of know it, like that legal sense of it, like, I mean, it really does sort of emerge out of like the sexual revolution to some extent, because when did contraception get legalized? Well, in Griswold v. Connecticut. What was it about? And it was an invented concept of privacy, not explicitly listed in the Constitution, that talked about, well, contraception is fine in the private domicile of a married couple to use contraception. And that, of course, is expanded to do all sorts of things, because, that gave way to abortion, that gave way to gay rights and all sorts of stuff. But like, what they do in their own home is their own business, but it never is just in their own home, because there was this, I think, unique distinction in America. And I don't know enough on this, and I should do some more reading on it. It's just that there always was this unique distinction or understanding that, like, actually how you carry yourself in private is also how you're going to carry yourself in public. And that we've kind of like gotten rid of that to a large extent. And it's just I would have to do more reading. I don't have a fully fleshed out thought on that one. But regardless of the content, your expressing it publicly is inherently humiliating, because it is objectifying yourself. Literally. It's usually an extremely tiny kind of humiliation, so small you don't notice it because you've grown accustomed to it and you were strong enough to bear it, but people are overall getting weaker. Maybe you could think about this in Evo Psych terms, about the fear of humiliation being the fear of expulsion from the tribe, but I don't think that that's accurate. We don't fear punishment, but judgment itself. My career as a poet changed over time. My initial motivation for doing it for myself, for my own expression and gratification, and using the audience as a tool for my own self-reflection and self-realization, gradually becoming for the audience's sake. The content and outward expression changed very little, but by simply going through the process of objectifying myself, my deeply felt heartaches and pain and woe is me, despair, gradually changed from tragedy to comedy. It became less about me feeling like I expressed myself and more about making people laugh / learn / something that you can get out of it. I talked to a lot of people who had similar experiences. You start doing it for you, but as you get better, you start doing it for them. Definitely true as a performer or a YouTuber, I think, in a lot of respect. You do it for you, like you want to say, ooh, I did this for myself, but now I want to do it for other people. That's for damn sure in that respect. I have definitely made responses or have written things with other people explicitly in mind. It happens. You do it for them. This is all just to say self-expression in this sense doesn't work. The more you try to make everyone take you seriously, the more you realize you are being a clown. Your most sincere pain and all this bittersweet aesthetic beauty you sense in it is all just arbitrary and void as little stupid politeness rituals you want to rebel against and call insincere. And you can experience this directly, undeniably, if you speak honestly about it in public. I used to say I wanted to be naked in public without pretense, without insecurity. It's not entirely right. I wanted to be in the public without anxiety, and attributed my anxiety to my own personal psychological hangups and that they were arbitrary expectations of society. The answer is, rather than anxiety is just part of the deal and more of an advanced sentience. It is a mechanically necessary part, and it's a package deal called life.
Yeah.
I'm with this so far. I haven't gotten this far into it, but I'm with it so far. This is tracking for me. The only reason I can reason my way to this conclusion, I contend, is because my parents taught me table manners. This is also incidentally an explanation for how it's possible for a parent to make his children better than himself. Introspection is an act of self-objectification. Self-objectification requires being able to construct the complex, multi-layered psychological operation of separating self from other. Theory of mind provides only a 2D universe. You are only objectified across a single line towards the other. 3D space is going a step beyond. The triangle is the strongest shape in nature and the first stable shape in geometry. We joke about 4D chess. The sad reality is that there is a meaningful distinction between 2D and 3D psychology. Can you rotate a shape in your imagination if you only literally think in 2 dimensions? In the 20th century's movements towards so-called higher consciousness, cults and the wisdom of the East and so forth, the fundamental premise always is discarding the arbitrary rules holding us back from higher consciousness. What if the rules are not bars in a prison, but steps on a ladder? Are you just perceiving it sideways because you don't have any depth or perception? This joke in itself is the training of 3D psychology. It's the classic structure of the joke. Premise creates assumption, revelation of new information that recontextualizes the question and reveals the assumption was wrong. Recognizing that one's assumption was wrong requires objectifying yourself, viewing yourself as an object from the outside perspective. In this sense, jokes are polite. In a more extreme example, in this sense, we can see innuendo not as repressed sexuality, repressed id, as they Freudians would have it, but rather the opposite, refined, more potent, nuanced, deeper, even more direct id expressions, or then even overt vulgarity. I like this concept of 3D psychology. I mean, like, do we have the depth to perceive things outside of just me and the other?
It's hypotheticals, right?
Yeah.
I know it's a meme, right? But a lot of it is like, if you like the shape rotator discourse, I mean, it's like stupid and it's memeified, but a lot of it is basically, can you intuit social responses of people, but can you also break those norms by intuiting how you could like sort of react? And like, it's basically like dialectics and discourse. Like, how can you map that? How can you preempt what someone else will say? How can you counter it and so forth? How can you have a conversation in your head is a big part of it. But I guess what is Egg Report saying, that the NPC, they can't do that, so they default to certain social modes, in the lack of, like, rotating discourse in their head? Or is that what he's trying to say? Or
I think so. I mean, I don't know if he would ever come on, but I'd love to like poke his brain about this. I mean, we're mutuals on Twitter, so I could ask him. I don't think he knows that we're doing this. Just going over it. But I saw it this morning when he published it, and I thought it was particularly interesting.
Yeah.
Because like we have this concept of NPCs. It's just like, oh, they're dummies. And I think he's sort of expanding it, saying like they don't have the depth perception on a psychological level to recognize that there is just more than inner outer. And they don't understand that things happen when we objectify ourselves in such a way that I pity the NPC because they don't think like I do. Like, it's kind of funny that there's that whole shape rotator word cell discourse, but like people do think differently. And it's sort of this unique thing of like psychological and neurological diversity about how we perceive things. I'm much more of a word guy than I am an artistic person. Like, I have no problem admitting that. Like, to me, it is easier to describe things, and that's why I like technical manuals and things like that, because it's easier for me to understand via words than it is that. It's the same reason why it's been easy for me to pick up on music or reading notation, because like there's there's a language to it. It's word. And in some respect, maybe that is just
Yeah.
two-dimensional. But like, I also understand that like where I am at right now and the screen and the public and the room, like I know that there's just more than that. And I'm also putting on this performance because every time I'm on
Well,
on camera, right? Like I'm in a suit or whatever. Like it's very interesting about how we perceive it.
well, I guess he's saying that most people don't intuit performance or what they're doing as
Yeah, they
performing.
don't.
Yeah. They don't realize that it is a performance, but when you do realize it's a performance, you have to be consciously aware of it to the point where you realize that like you are playing to certain affects of people rather than a rationalistic version of truth or whatever, or dialectics. Dialectics is not the way that normal people function. People normally function on affect, emotion, appeals to, even the intonation of voice is like big,
Yeah.
So when you're not consciously aware of the fact that sociality is in a lot of ways a honing in of performativity in everyday life, then you will naturally default to whatever is consensus or social conditioning or whatever. It's just the way things are. Even people that do realize that it's a performance, I mean, people that realize it's a performance, but yet go along with it anyways, in some ways that's even more greater of a hell in a sense,
And I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the question I always have to wonder when you do see those videos, or even like, for a throwback, if everyone remembers the fat Jigglypuff person when they had
Yeah,
Steven
free speech
Crowder.
is not hate speech.
Yeah, that one. Like you look at that and you're like, oh my god, what a sad piece of shit. But at the same time, like, is that person not aware of what like a crazy person she looked like? And I mean, I think that's Randy's point, is that you're correct. I don't think that person understands that ugly, bingo fat chicken wing performance that she was giving is just fucking sad. And like for her, even if she thinks that she's performing, that she's doing this righteous act, to the rest of us, it's like, get her out of here and get her in a fat camp real quick.
She's a grad student, apparently. Like Rod Dreyer tweeted this last year.
Oh God.
She looks the same. I mean, I think she lost some weight. But
they never lose enough.
Let's look at.
Yeah,
she doesn't look. I mean, she looked like she lost some weight, but Cora Miriam.
That's her name. Cora
Miriam.
Is that with a Q?
No, it's that's CRA, Cora Miriam.
Ah, okay.
And she's
whoa. Well, good for her, Not that I care, but
she's autistic apparently.
That won't save her. That won't.
I don't know. I kind of feel sad for this girl. I feel sad for her.
Heart in your heart.
No, I know, but it's like, I don't know. I can't hate someone like that too much. I mean, she's just some fat girl, I mean, if she does go into HR and ruin someone's lives, then
it's game over.
It's game over. I don't know. I can't hate on her too much. I mean, there's certain people I just
I'm sorry, I'm looking at chat.
Kind, sensitive young man, if you feel sad, throw her in the
yeah. We all know if you are afraid to show your face online, it actually means you are afraid to show me your address and place of work. But here is, I think, an important nuance. Yes, we know full well that they are being deceitful. It's an overt aggression, but they don't know how or why it works, only that it works. And crucially, you cannot explain it to them. You can only begin the slow, arduous process of teaching them manners. We must civilize the liberal. In a culture of civility, you can train the outsider by silence and shame, non-participation, exclusion. If you are the mainstream, exclusion can be training. But this is not the case in many places today, and you will have to resort to overt shaming to train them. Will you please not talk on your phone in here? You are being very rude, etc. Manners today is a matter of life and death. For a long time, my go-to response to people who want to fight me on the internet has been, everyone can see what you're doing. I think now more than ever that that's important.
So like that, read that one part where he's like, when you say you should use the real name and face.
Yeah, it means you're actually afraid to show me your address and place of work. But the me in capitalization here. I mean, that's always true. Like, oh, you're just an anon, and like the anons are like, no, I just know that you people are sick freaks that want me like doxxed, fired, and like canceled, or where you can meet me in person and beat me up. Like, they're not idiots. They know how this game works. But for
Yeah.
them, they don't. They know full well why they're being. They know full well they're being deceitful. Yes, they do know. It's aggressive. It's aggressive. They don't know how or why it works.
Well, it goes back to my article I wrote. Um,
About anonymity.
Yeah, about Jordan Peterson anonymity. What was it called? Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot the title of it.
You don't remember the name of your own article?
Anons at the Gates. Anons at the Gates. That's
okay.
Yeah, sorry. Anons at the Gates, substack.com/Gio's Content Corner, Anons at the Gates, about critiquing Jordan Peterson. I said that like the reality is that when you're on the internet, you basically are kind of like a poster anyways. So the view that the real name and face is a guarantor of the authenticity of your words doesn't really apply, because the pure poster that is an anon has a form of authentic speech, or I talk about the Greek concept of parrhesia. They have a form of authentic speech, even if it's something authentic speech that you disagree with. Now, there's a lot of posters that don't have that selectively deceive people and talk a bunch of nonsense and shitpost or whatever. But when you're talking about the serious poster, the sort of infrastructure of posting on the internet sort of lends itself, even if you do use your real face with a real profile picture, you're still kind of like an anon spiritually anyways, in the sense that you are posting and the info, the sort of meeting with his message sort of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it constitutes posting in a certain manner. So people like Jordan Peterson can like say that, the troll demons that are anons, that they're not real or authentic, or like Eric Weinstein implying that like anon posters are part of Chinese troll farms or whatever. Like, it's insanity. But what are you gonna do?
Absolutely.
Gio libbed out pretty hard this stream. Yeah, when it comes to homelessness, I do tend to lib out, but I mean, even what's funny is that in that tweet, that there's like this like left-tard bread tuber replied to it, like, no, actually liberals want to house them. It's like, even like leftoids in the replies are like, maybe we should bring back the institutions.
Yeah.
Right? So make of that what you will. Yeah.
I think this is interesting, and I look forward to seeing where Randy takes
Where it goes.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite writers. I like the stuff that he puts out. So I have it linked in the description. So anytime that we read an article, it'll be linked in the show description from here on out.
Yeah.
So we don't repeat those issues. But yeah. Oh, yes, you do. Hi. That's very strange to think about. Yeah. Okay. Hello, Emma. Good to meet you, or have you on here. I'm looking at.
Do you
chat.
know this Emma?
I do. I met them recently.
Whoa.
Hence the shout out. Yeah. Very strange. But yes, Peyton Manning's girlfriend is here. I happen to be very close friends with the Manning family. A little, lo and behold, they don't really understand that. People should post their realities.
Peyton Manning, where have you heard that?
Because he's an NFL football player.
Oh yeah,
or he was.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Him and his brother. More people should post their realities. That's true.
Some people do, but their realities are quite disturbing. But I mean, even when you post your realities, I mean, it's sort of it's always a gamble, because there's always like that element of like, I'm bearing my soul, and sometimes at the other end of that, it's and
I think it's that performance thing that Randy was talking about that always makes it like difficult in that respect. Because it's just like, I am pouring out my heart and soul when they think it, but they don't recognize that for us, like, this is a really elaborate performance that you're doing, and that's a really funny bit, and now it's time for you to like shut up and let's go back to what we're supposed to talk about. Because like, it's always awkward when someone does fess up and it's not in like an intimate context, or it's not something serious, like, or at least maybe in a public non-church context. Because like, it's different if it's confession. It's different if it's like, I'm asking somebody to pray for me. It's a very serious issue, or I'm looking to someone's advice from like a godparent. But like, in the worldly internet sense of things, like, yeah, you can bear your soul out. But for most of us, like, why'd you do that? It's very it's a very strange thing to acknowledge. It's
Yeah.
like it's a digital ordeal of civility in a lot of respects.
Well, I mean, I've sincere posted over the years, and
Well, I mean, so have I. I mean, I've asked people to
yeah,
like I let people know that I had a kidney transplant. It's not me fishing for fucking
yeah.
sympathy, but it's just like, hey, this is the shit I'm going through. Like I'm gonna have a different perspective on things.
Well,
You know,
I think people. I mean, maybe there should be. This is what I talk about when we talk about e-maturity, internet maturity, and that you should cultivate a sense of being sincere, but not having that sincerity become a spectacle or becoming a way to grift, which is even worse, or a way of. Do you remember that one rant in BoJack Horseman by Todd?
yep. It
Where
depends on
he's
which
like,
one though. He's done a few in that show.
he's done a few of them, but the one where he's like in the this is season 2, where he's like, BoJack, you can't just keep doing bad things, and because you feel sorry about it, you pretend it's okay. It's like
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's you, man. It's you.
you're the
Fuck,
problem.
man.
Yeah,
You're the problem. Fuck, man. It's like a lot of I notice millennials do that. I mean, I've even done this in my life where it's like you pretend you feel bad about it and you pretend like that's okay. Like morally, that's like it justifies it because you feel bad about it. So you have a moral sense, right? I think like you have to sincere post without that impulse to be like, well, because I feel bad about it, that means I can still do it. I don't have to change from it. Because I feel bad about it. And I'm being sincere. And therefore it becomes this like, don't judge me because of it. You have to
yeah,
avoid that. If you really are in your sort of darkest of moments and you feel like you should sincerely post in a public forum what your issues are, there must be some form of resolution, not revolution. I was going
yeah.
to say revelation as well. Revelation.
Revelation. Yeah,
Yeah, because bearing someone's soul can really reveal their character. But I feel like when you just jerk people off with your sincere posting and there's no resolution to it, then you become someone like Boogie 298, where it's like, I'm fat. Oh my God, give me money because I'm fat. I want to change. And then you don't change.
but yeah,
Then I'm
nothing
sorry.
changes.
Yeah, nothing changes, right? So that type of new sincerity is very negative. That is something that should be avoided. It would ruin sincerity. In fact, sardonic and cutting irony through the anonymous internet is preferable to that form of fake, wholesome chungus sincerity that really is just emotionally exploiting the audience. And if there's no resolution or action attached to that sincerity, then what's the point? Well, you know what's funny about Wings of Redemption? I know Tom, our good friend Turkey Tom, came out with a documentary on him. Uh, I would say Boogie is way worse than Wings of Redemption because Wings. I mean, he has had multiple wives and girlfriends, and Boogie had that one wife or whatever, and then. But Boogie's just a piece of shit, anyways. He's emotionally stunted, and he, I was abused as a kid, so you can't judge me for being an asshole. Like
but I
exploiting your
can.
fans from thousands of dollars because maybe I should do that. Maybe you should do that on my Patreon. Give me money because I'm losing weight. It's like fuck.
There you go. There's your answer.
Any thoughts on Boogie fighting Wings Redemption? Didn't Wings Redemption win? Of course he was gonna win. Wings Redemption, Jordy is younger than he's younger than Boogie. He has a bit more flexibility than Boogie. Of course he was going to win. Is Niccolo Avocado losing weight? Is he losing weight? He could lose weight.
He needs to. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I think he's just gonna like kill himself from his indulgences for the sake of the show. And I mean, like, you want to go back to the whole like Pandora's Fox thing from Humdog, like that desire to like produce that cult of like production that she wrote about, and then later Byung-Chul Han talks about in Disappearance of Rituals, like. That will kill people. And I'm sure it already has killed people because how did he get his start? He used to post videos of like his like flute or oboe performances or whatever. Like he was a musician.
Yeah.
And now he's just like a fat, like the definition of gluttony incarnate, right? Like it's awful. And if like apparently he has an OnlyFans and stuff like that, like that's even worse. Because like I'm the ultimate.
He's peating. Yeah, he's a peater.
He's peating. He's increasing that metabolism. He was a violin player. Thank you. So like you went from a classical musician, and when you realize that maybe that doesn't cut it, I'm going to just turn into this fat monster, and it's like scary to think about.
Yeah. So also you got to realize
Even
the
if he's
reason,
doing it, even if he's doing it as performance art,
yeah,
like
the
your
reverse hungry
desire,
artist.
your desire to produce and to perform will kill you. And if that's the ultimate like expression of making it that way, then yeah, sure.
It's sort of like at the end of The Hunger Artist by Kafka, where the boy finds the hunger artist dead in the in the cage, and he's like, why did, and it's sort of absurdism, because he says, why did you do that, why did you starve yourself to death? He goes, because there was nothing good to eat, meaning like there's like an absurdity to him giving like a non-answer. That was Kafka's point. But with Nicola Avocado, when he dies of a heart attack, like, why did you do that? Because everything was good to eat. So it's like,
yeah, everything was good to eat, and the slop made me famous.
No, the reason that Nicola Avocado is you got to listen. Trust me, as a fat ass, I know this. The reason he's experiencing such negative health issues, like lung issues, no mobility issues, is because you got to realize, if you've been fat for like a long time, for your whole life practically, your body sort of finds a way to cope, in the sense that your organs are bigger. You know, your leg. Well, if you don't have Cushing syndromes, your legs are like tree trunks and so forth, and it will catch up with you eventually. This is why I'm trying to lose weight, because you hit like the 30-year-old mark. You hit 40 years old, not good, right? So Nicola Avocado, because he has a lot of rapid weight gain, that's why his organs are being like just totally rocked, and why his like legs are having mobility issues. Because if your body is not accustomed to being obese for a very long period of time, and let's face it, statistically, morbidly obese people, they start when they're teenagers. That's usually when it hits, for a variety of reasons, right? So, yeah, your body will cope until it doesn't cope. When you're fat at older ages, that's when you got to start worrying. Like so the reason Nicola Avocado, but you got to realize that his metabolism and physiognomy, he could lose a lot of weight very quickly, and he could go back to normal. So hopefully he does. But unfortunately, he may have lingering health issues, but kind of not as much lingering health issues if he loses weight now. So I think it's absolutely demonic that people are paying him to do this. But
I mean, to me, it is depressing for sure, because it's just like you've sacrificed what for all this fame and internet bit, and
to become a horror cow.
Like it's real it's body horror to me.
Yeah,
and but to him, it's the day in the life, and but such is the case, right?
Yeah,
such is the case. But shall we get to the super chats there, Gio?
Yeah, I think Patrick Casey's streaming, so.
Oh, well then, I guess if you want the hardcore Indian discourse, I suppose you can head on down over to Restoring Order right after the show is done. But first of all, ladies and gentlemen, the Digital Archipelago is brought to you by viewers like you. Your ongoing support and your financial contribution to individuals like Gio and myself is what is necessary in order to keep this ongoing shit show going. So by all means, send Gio a manual typewriter, send us some money, and we will answer your questions both here and on Entropy. Send Gio the manual typewriter. I already got one. So by all means, your support is continued and appreciated by all. And with that, we'll get to them. So starting off, we've got Robert Gilpin for $10 Canadian. Unrelated,
$10.
But an amazing. There we go. Unrelated, but an amazing find was found in Israel. A collection of Roman-inspired swords from the Bar Kokhba Revolt, 132-136 AD. Do either of you have a classics background? I do not.
No, not really.
No, my background is in American history and constitutionalism and and political science with a focus on international relations. But I'll have to look that up. That does sound interesting.
That sounds interesting.
Because that was one of the later Jewish revolts, right? Because there was the one in AD 70. But I know that there was another one in the 100s. But okay. Did you catch Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, trying to spook fellow libshits into stopping migration today? We're doomed. I did see him say it was basically unsustainable and that New York would collapse if they kept taking any more. So
he's not going to win re-election.
No, I
He
mean, like
lives in New York. They're gonna get rid of him.
they'll get rid of him for not kicking them out fast enough. Because they don't want more people in New York, and they're not going to tolerate the more migrants coming into New York.
Oh,
Like,
really? I thought they were pro migrant.
no, I mean, like, Eric Adams is like scaring the shit out of these people. Like, we can't handle this, and we need to stop. And I mean, even the voters won't tolerate it either. But like the mayoral elections are always kind of like a weird. I mean, it's basically just ethnic gangsterism at the voting booth.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
who gets the biggest ethnic coalition, and we go from there.
Us Italians used to control that racket in New York, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put in.
You put in the work.
Oh yeah.
You did the work.
Well, who was the mayor that founded New York? Basically, the Italian guy. What's his name?
I don't remember.
Not Robert Moses. I think he came after Robert Moses. God, what was his name? The Italian mayor of New York.
You're referring to Giuliani?
No, God, this was like decades before Giuliani. This is like back in the
LaGuardia.
LaGuardia. There you go. Yeah, there you go. We used to control that racket. Then the other, then the
others came in.
Yeah, the others came in. LaGuardia, like, he really knew how to administer the city, man. Like, he really knew. You know, New York wouldn't be the same without LaGuardia. So, but they robbed it from us, man. They took it from us Italians. the Semitic peoples, they took it from us Italians. Didn't they have a black mayor back in what was his name?
They've had more than one black mayor.
The blind guy. Who was the blind guy during the Bush years?
I don't know.
Williams?
I mean, there was Dinkins, but he was in the 90s. I don't know who else was there.
I think he was blind. He was a blind guy.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up.
Blind black mayor. Look it up. Was it? Oh, it was Governor David. No, it was the governor of New York, David Patterson.
Patterson, yeah, it was the governor of New York. Yeah, the blind guy.
Yeah. Oh boy, you mean New Amsterdam? Well,
is Eric Adams black?
Yes, Eric Adams is black. I don't know if he's FBA, but I'm not too into the.
California.
Did you see the Tariq Nasheed AI thing that he put out today?
Oh God, I think I did. Yeah.
He used the AI art to put like Barack Obama in like a gay background in fucking like rollerblades and stuff. Like, that man entertains me for that sole sake of him just being funny. He's entertaining to say the least. It's kind of funny. We covered the Garrow's interview, and then like not Barack Obama, but like Tucker Carlson's like, we're gonna get a gay crackhead and we're gonna talk about this.
That's what Dasha tweeted. I can't wait to hear what the gay crackhead has to say about Obama.
Oh, I had no idea she tweeted that. I ever blocked, but like, good to know.
Well, then ZHP's like, Tucker talked for 40 minutes about Barack Obama's. He said Barack Obama's gay sex life. It's like, Tucker, what are you doing? Like, it really is a fabulation.
We talked about it like the last two episodes, or we're just like, it's weird that America had a gay black president that we know nothing about. And although the Sinclair stuff was mentioned, so I guess Pastor Manning vindicated once again.
But don't you feel it's like crazy how this sort of like media fabulation of reality, like it's can you imagine if the Obama what would you call it, the Obama office or whatever, his public LLC, can you imagine if like they sue Tucker for defamation?
We'll see. I mean, I'm kind of but if he
did you want to talk about the ADL stuff? I mean, we didn't talk about that, but
I mean, if they ban him off Twitter, great. But I don't think the ADL is going away anytime soon. I mean, if Tucker wants to, Tucker's the richest man on earth, if he wants to do it, I say go for it.
Oh, you mean Elon's the richest man?
Yeah, I mean Elon's the richest man on earth. Like, if you want to go for it, go for it. But I don't think he'll go that far. I mean, like, he's not Henry Ford, guys. Like, he's not. He's not publishing, like, when you install the Twitter app on your phone, it doesn't come with a copy of the international, like, it doesn't do that, right? He's not Henry Ford. But I mean, if he litigates and something happens and they manage to do a blow, fine. I'm more realistic. I think this just means Jonathan Greenblatt will step down. They'll bring
Yeah.
someone else on. It makes it more moderate. But I mean, the SPLC in America does the doxing, the investigating, working with Bellingcat, working with people like Jason Wilson and Travis Brown to dox and hunt people down and to get your friends fired from their work for having beliefs on the internet that they don't like. And to me, that's a much bigger and important target to me personally, because those guys have hurt my friends and I will not stand for that. But also, like, hey, the FBI can just find some boomer who's Fed posting and execute him without any judicial or public responsibility. So, like, we live in a much different world than we might have 20 years ago. But I mean, if he bans the ADL off Twitter, cool. Like,
but it is crazy that people are talking about the ADL.
They are evil.
Yeah, like if it is crazy that people are talking about it. And can you imagine, like, if Keith Woods like really kicked off Elon suing the ADL, like that would really be like, I think, a victory for the internet age. But like you said, I would say the SPLC is the greater evil. Not to minimize the damage that the ADL has done. I mean, for example, in that Twitter space where Keith was going after that agent who had to deactivate her account. Popehead our good friend Popehead went on and he was dropping like real truth bombs about how the ADL prevented the canonization of a saint, of a mystic. What was her name? Catherine Emmerich, because apparently like her mystical visions were anti-Semitic or whatever. Like it was, there's a backstory behind it, but no, that Twitter space was wild. That'll go down in like Twitter in history, the internet.
Oh,
history,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, obviously it's a good thing to expose the ADL, but like you were saying, like, I think much more attention needs to be paid to the SPLC. The problem, I think, is because the SPLC, they hide a lot of their activism through these like decentralized network to Antifa account groups.
Yeah, they're very much like a terror cell.
Yeah, and then their public face is sort of like these clowns. Like, that one guy with glasses and a beard, that guy?
Yeah.
He's been there since the 90s. He's always in those interviews about hate groups. Like that guy's like, a very clownish type of guy. He's like, he's like, he's like, their hatred, they're foaming hatred. And it's like, you can't take him seriously. But what the ADL does behind the scenes, that's even more dangerous than just their public face of like, here's another hate group, here's another hate symbol. Like what they do behind the scenes is way worse, But again, not to minimize the damage that the ADL has done either. But the SPLC does need to, I would see, needs to have more attention placed in them.
Yeah, so, if both could go, that'd be even better.
Yeah.
So we'll
because
see
like Greenblatt's is just a clownish type of guy. Like he's remember the Breakfast Club, the hip hop radio show where he's like, "Hey, I'm Jay Greenblatt. We're gonna talk about Kanye, talk about racism, talk about Trump."
Yeah, it was like, a sports show.
Yeah, it was a sports show. Yeah, but it's got like the African American audience, right? And so it's like, hello, fellow kids.
Know your place, right? Like, know who you answer to. Incredibly.
That was so unoptical for Jonathan Greenblatt to do that. That was so unoptical because the relations between Black people in America and, it's
I mean, there's a book on that by Murray Friedman if you want to know the history of it. And my friend Dimes from Blood Satellite and I, we're going to cover that book. We're going to record next week on it. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
I might have an opportunity because I'm friends with his former editor. I may have an opportunity to have Norman Finkelstein on Content Minded. Not that I would, because that's kind of like, you never know, though. You never know.
You never know. So true. But we'll head on to the next one. Luthemplar again for $5. US says, I can also tell who we're bombing by what women I see on YouTube ads. Woo! That'll do it, won't it?
Why are there Ukrainian women ads?
I don't know. I have ad blockers for days, so I guess we do. I guess there is more Ukrainian advertisements. Robert Gilpin for $27.99 Canadian.
$27.
I watched Gio's talks on mass graves in the reserve-ish Canada. I had to live in a northern reserves for several years, and I would say you're broadly right, but if anything, the problem is worse than stated.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I can only imagine.
Man.
Sam153 for $10.
$10.
Sneed and I okay.
Sneed is ein Inget.
Sneed is Yeah, something like that. You're gonna get it there. But Sam, thank you so much. You finally
Man,
had
thank you,
found a word
Fred.
that I'm gonna butcher on the internet. Gloth for $5 says, in a Christian context, the public-private distinction has interesting implications for salvation slash soteriology as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I kind of hope that Randy pokes into that a little bit, because like Randy's also a Christian. I don't know if he's a part of the Catholic Church or not, or what he's into, but like he's got a few pieces about why Christianity terrifies him and why he believes in it. He's one of my favorite writers for that reason. But no, I think that there is that true connotation, because like there's a private public distinction, but like that's a man-made concept, like God sees all. So like, and it's funny because like I'm currently reading right now a book called The Diary of a Russian Priest, and he's talks about in confession how people don't like talking about coveting thy neighbor's wife, or like their private affairs. I don't need to confess it, he says. And he says, I find that very interesting, because like God sees all this. It's not a private affair when there is an all-knowing, omnipotent deity that you're supposed to be confessing to. But yeah, like the public-private distinction does have a huge impact on our efforts to be saved. I agree with that. Fishy Frenzy for £5. He says, here's a couple of pounds for the gift chocolate for Gio. We'll have to give it to Gio next week. What chocolate and other treats are your favorites, Prue and Gio? Well, what do you like? What kind of sweet slop do you like?
I'm very much a fan of the nut family, like chocolate, cocoa, peanut butter, vanilla, that type of stuff. Like I'm not a candy person. I'm much more of a chocolate person. So anything of that combination, I'm good. I don't really have I guess certain favorites I have because they have a personal attachment to me. Like my nonu, my grandfather, when I was a little kid, used to give me caramel. So I guess caramel is one of my favorites. What else? Chocolate covered almonds, anything like that. That's like my forte. I'm not very much of a candy person. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I'm a nut man. There you go. I guess like softer candies, I guess like, certain gummies or whatever, but I don't go out of my way. I'm much more of a chocolate ice cream type of person. So
yeah, I'm a big ice cream guy as well. My favorite ice cream is mint chocolate chip. I don't really, I'm a fan of it. I mean,
I like cookie dough.
Soft serve ice cream is fantastic. Chocolate is always a good thing for me. Out of all of the like cookies or like things that you can get in like baked goods, I like baking in general, like for myself personally. But like if there's a slop that I like the most, it's Oreos. That's definitely up there for me. And then I like caramel and like hard candies as well. I like lifesavers and stuff like that.
I like anything soft, like the Little Debbie's cream pies, like those are good.
Yep.
I'm not making a joke by that. Those are actually that's what they're called.
I know.
The oatmeal cream pie cookies.
Yeah.
I'm not making a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. You're not being a pervert, Gio. I know what you mean. It's an American staple for some people.
I like oatmeal, like cookies. Anything's like cookies to me got to be soft though. Like they got to be chewy.
Hydrox, yes, I know. The Oreos are imposters, but no one wants to eat something that sounds like a fucking chemical cleaner.
Yeah, I know.
Like the Oreos guys were like, yes, like this is a great product. We're now going to brand it so it doesn't suck.
Yeah. Look at Marvel's
Little Debbie's nationalism. Damn right.
There you go.
Yeah, Thin
Enjoys
Mints, Girl
nuts
Scout
and
cookies. That's so true. John Goris, I like that. I like Thin Mints at least. And
Thin Mints.
I don't know what they call them anymore. They used to be called Samoas, but now I think they no longer hold the proprietary. They don't hold the proprietary rights to the recipes, so there are knockoffs that you can get of Girl Scout cookies at the dollar store and Walmart. That's fantastic.
Oh, zebra cakes are all right, Arsenius.
My mom likes those a lot.
Yeah,
but that is true. Gio is a big fan of nuts and cream pies. He gets one girlfriend and it's all over.
It's all over. Yeah.
Brent Taylor for $2 says quintillions must be saved. Indeed.
There you go.
They must make the choice and repent. And then on Entropy, Graham McCann for $3 US says, I want to watch Lane. I have an unopened collector's edition of Evangelion on Blu-ray sitting by Leviathan and its enemies, which I haven't read. I'll add Lane to that shelf when I see it on Blu-ray. What have you done, Gio? What have you done?
I know, eh?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm trying to look this up. Hydrox is a cream-filled chocolates. Is Hydrox just like a rip-off Oreo?
No, it's the original Oreo.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's the original Oreo.
Why the fuck would they name it Hydrox? That's like totally. That's brand suicide. That's brand death.
That was my point. I was like, that's just like asking for someone to make a better name and to do it.
It's like eating drain cleaner.
Favorite slop is hot chip. I bet you also lie, little hush.
Yeah.
I bet you also lie. You eat hot chip and lie.
I mean, that's like remember that one part in King of the Hill, like no wonder they put warning labels on kitchen cleaner because my god, it looks delicious. Like
yeah,
a lot of cleaning products have that like neon, like they do look delicious. I mean, come on.
You drink the neon green fluid. Yeah, I know. But you know, they can try that out now and not get hurt. I guess they can have both him and Jimmy Buffett and Steve Harwell. They can have their cheeseburgers in paradise now. So the years do stop coming, but they can at least enjoy a margarita in heaven. Novum for $5 US says, facing withdrawal from my weekly dose of Fiddler's Green. Yes, I watched the Wokal debate. It wasn't enough. Damn, you're a dedicated
Wokal
man.
Pistons.
Yeah. You two are helping out with a lot of good insights on modern topics. Cheers, Jensen. God bless. Well, thank you, Novum.
Thank you.
That's greatly appreciated. Yeah, hopefully Dave will start streaming regularly again. I know that he's sort of getting back into work mode and coming back from the UK. But yeah, what a great way to come back onto the internet with a 4.5-hour discussion with the most effeminate, like classical liberal gatekeeper. God bless.
It didn't need to be 4 hours. Let me tell you.
No, it did not. No, it did not. Even I Hypocrite was like he streamed a little bit of the debate and he's like, I'm done after like 30 minutes, right? Of just like stopping and pausing. It was like an 1.5-hour stream, and he's like, I'm not doing this whole thing. Anonymous for $10 US says, here is some bringing the art of angling to my attention. Oh, favorite fishing techniques. Live bait and top waters are always great when it comes to like smallmouth bass or pike. Well, not pike so much. You want something better than that, like a frog reel or lure would be good. But like smallmouth bass, for example, like it's what I normally fish for. They like to go for like wounded bait or whatever. So you know, having a worm or other live bait, like where I live, like grasshoppers are great bait. So stuff like that. Rattle traps and top waters are also fantastic, but it really just depends on where I am. If I'm fishing out back, you know, everything that I've just listed works, but depending on where I go, say a lake or a river, it'll depend on what's in the area. And thankfully, I've got the resources to look that up and check it out. But I mean, for me, you know, simple top waters, bait, you know, things that I can spend and waste my hours and my days by the banks is all that I would love to have happen to me. Yeah, he has the patience of a saint. That's definitely true. That is for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Real liberalism has never been tried. Anyways, here's Wonderwall. Yeah, with the guitar thing, I just
cringe.
Can I use goldfish in Texas? I don't know if he does. If you can, I mean, you can buy minnows and stuff. If you wanted for something bigger, I guess you could use goldfish in that respect. So. You know, there are options for you out there. There are options. But yeah. So with that being said, pending, there was one more. Owen Zaleski for $3 US. He says, hi, gents. Both of you are well. It's been going around on Twitter, but what are some of your favorite and least favorite books? I love East of Eden and hate The Awakening. Also, did Gio get Entropy yet?
Oh, I should get Entropy.
Yeah. But I don't know. As for some of my favorite books, like, I guess it just depends on the genre or whatnot. But like for me, one of my favorite books of all time is Ender's Game, The Brothers Karamazov, Bleak House. More recent stuff would be more of these like pulpy action science fiction books, the Orphanage series by Robert Buettner. But I don't know. I haven't like. As for books that I hate, I haven't picked up a lot of fiction that I just like instantly disliked. I've read some Anne Rice and I knew it wasn't my thing, but I can't say I hate it. And like, but I mean, I've read some political books that I don't like, but if you want to know a political book I don't like, just wait in a week or two. My review of a book I don't like will be out in the Mars Review of Books. So I can say that much for sure. But what about you, Gio? What are some books you like and don't like?
Oh God. Fiction though, is that what he means?
I don't know. I mean, you can have
Oh, I guess the book I don't like is I don't know. I mean, like I had to read a Bridati in school, transhumanist feminism. What else? Liberal Leviathan. I hate that book. I had to read it. What's the Matter with Kansas? Like all the poli-sci shit that I had to read. Um, but in terms of books I like, I mean, well, I mean, it just depends on my research, like what I'm doing in the moment. But in terms of like fiction, I mean, I like The Blind Owl, Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. What else? I mean, I read a lot. I read some short stories here and there. Yeah. I mean, I really like Marty Phillips's book,
yeah, Millennium.
Millennium.
That was a
I mean,
great.
Holy Hunt was like, well, we'll talk about it when my episode comes out with him, but Holy Hunt was like really one of the best stories I've ever read in terms of
Yeah.
short stories. Like that really was wow. What
I
else?
was a fan of his book.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my 2-hour discussion with him on my channel if you're interested. But I mean, yeah, go read Millennium by Marty Phillips.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
I mean, I don't know. I read some erotica from time to time. Like the Delta Venus book by Aniason is pretty good, especially the one short. It's called Matilda.
Did you say a niacin instead of onision right there? Was that your way of skirting by?
And Ananias Nin. I mean, there's a way to pronounce her name, but and I no,
I'm
God,
giving
that's
you
a
shit.
blasphemy past.
I'm giving you shit.
No, Ananias. I say Ananias, but her real name apparently allegedly you pronounce it Ananias Nin. But yeah, Delta Venus is a great collection of erotic short stories. Her yeah. So
Interesting.
very interesting. Well, I had to like read multiple books of hers for my podcast I did with Art of Darkness. So
Well, what do you got going on this week or this coming week?
I might make a shorter video. I'll probably get back to doing shorts. And for an episode of Content Mine, I was thinking of doing another solo one, but I may just release the Marty Phillips one. So yeah, that would be
All
good.
right.
Yeah.
I'll probably have, since the Digital Archipelago will be on your channel next week, what I'll probably do is I will have a video out on my channel, so more scripted stuff to come out very soon. And then after that, I'll be back with some geopolitics shortly afterwards, but I got to get some research done before I get too far into things. I don't want it just to be like reading the news and talking about it. But I was on Orrin McIntyre's show this week as well, which you can see in my community tab. I was also with the Pamphleteer also as well. It was a really fun discussion. By all means, tune into that. And then follow us on Twitter, your ongoing financial support on Subscribestar, Patreon, Substack, Buy Me a Coffee, as well as PayPal and other ways through Entropy are always greatly appreciated. And with that, we will see you all next time.
Oh, yeah. I also forgot to mention Leaves of House of Leaves is another favorite.
There you go.
And yes, I will use your string when I do another solo episode, Philip. We'll use my string trio. Yes, I will. All right.
Well, it'll be an exciting week.
All right, boys.
We'll see you, gents.
God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet.
See y'all.